council just came out of closed session talking about some pending issues with the seismic testing, and there was no action taken as of today. It was just an update. Agenda review. Does anybody have anything?
Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'd like to apologize to everyone because my hearing aid is not working. My hearing is getting worse, and I can't even hear myself talk. So please forgive me. I would like to defer under old business, Jaguar's lorry discussion until we get the appropriate update, and would like to defer this until August, at an August meeting, whether it's the first August meeting or the second. I'll leave that up to Hiram. And that's the only agenda matter that I have.
So we're going to take Jaguar's liar off. Is there any other ones?
I'm good with the agenda.
Me too.
Rich, you're good? You good with the rest of the agenda?
I am.
You good with the rest of the agenda?
Yes.
Council discussion?
I have an
Have
item.
anything?
I have an item. It's,
Go ahead, John.
on Memorial Day, the town of Sunset Beach and the Committee to Honor American Veterans co-hosted the Memorial Day ceremony. It was ideal weather. We estimate about 500 attended, and there were excellent remarks by Dr. Kyle Horton. On behalf of the staff and the council, the Committee to Honor American Veterans and the council would like to say thank you to the staff, DPW, Police Department, and Fire Department for their participation and their assistance in this project.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add to that. I want to recognize some local businesses that helped us out. Fibber McGee's brought water for the entire crowd. Mavericks Point, Dave's Outpost, Bill's Seafood, and Coastal Outfitters all allowed those attending to park at their businesses. These businesses support our town. Please remember to support them and all of the businesses in Sunset Beach. Oops. And all the volunteers, the parking assistants, the ushers, sorry. And Sunset Vision was a big part of that.
Anything else?
I have another item.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. On May 10th, I attended the Grand Strand Area Transportation Study, the GSATs. I'm the alternate representative. Two items to point out. One is sort of general interest, is that in North Carolina 2019 to date, there have been 351 highway fatalities, and the biggest cause of those fatalities has been lane departures. You know, people losing attention and going one side to the other. 196 of those fatalities were due to lane departures. Something that hits pretty much directly into our community. The two age groups that had most of these accidents were at age 70 to 80 and age 16 to 23. And for the most part, Sunset Beach doesn't worry too much about the 16 to 23 group, but it's kind of a serious issue. A second item there is this group has been part of the effort to track the extension of Highway 31 from South Carolina up to North Carolina. And they're in a process of coming up with 6 options for corridors. That's not direct routes, but 6 options for the corridors. And they're anticipating these would be available for public review in October. Then they expect that there will be about a 1.5-year process for them to pick one of those corridors. And after which then they'll have to determine within that corridor how to pick the exact route. So it's still several years away. Anyway, that's my report.
I have one more thing.
Go ahead, Charlie.
I haven't commented on this because I wanted to see how things played out, but it's in reference to Mrs. Lewis' May 16th article about Sunset Vision and the proposed fitness trail. Miss Lewis's article lacked journalistic integrity. This article is not factually accurate and brings the Beacon to the level of tabloid journalism. That's all.
What was not, excuse me, what was not factually accurate? No, I'm asking Mr. Nern. What was not factually accurate? He made the statement.
Read the article. You'll
I
see.
did. What was not factually accurate? That's not the issue. What was not factually reported? I think the Beacon has the right to know. You made a statement. Now just answer it. Thank you. I think that's the answer. Nothing.
He knows.
Okay.
Anything else? That's it?
Thank God I'm going deaf. Mr. Mayor, may I ask if we had any applicants for the Environmental Resource Committee? Any additional applicants?
Yes, we're up to 4. We have, and one of those is an ETJ
Okay.
resident. 4. So,
See,
right, but we'll be setting up interviews for y'all in the coming weeks.
Thank you.
We're gonna get your calendars from you.
That's that. I guess we got 5 minutes.
want to play cribbage?
Don't know how. You want to take a 5-minute recess? We'll take a 5-minute recess.
so. It's on.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you to the 7 o'clock regular council meeting. At this time, would you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Does any member of the council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regard to any item on the agenda? And if so, please state so at this time.
I do not.
No.
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 Can I get a motion to open the public hearing?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to file a motion to open the public hearing for the fiscal year 20 budget, as was proposed.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I said aye.
Okay. Now we'll open the public session. Does anybody have anything to say on the public hearing?
No one?
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Done. Next up is a presentation by the Old Bridge Preservation Society. John?
To start off and to be clear, I am a volunteer and active supporter of the Old Bridge. The Old Bridge Preservation Society is a nonprofit 501c3 that has been in existence since the summer of 2010. Over the last 9 years, they have restored the Old Bridge, created a museum, and told the story of the Old Bridge, as well as the story of the blockade runner Vista and other parts of our Sunset Beach history. They have hosted thousands of visitors who love the Sunset Beach and our bridge. On May 29th, the Society announced a new chapter in their life as an organization. They are now the Old Bridge Historical Society. Ms. Ann Bokelman, one of the 3 founders of the Old Bridge Historical Society, will brief the council and community on past and present programs and plans for the future as they carry out their mission of bridging our history and future through education and preservation. Ms. Bokelman.
Thank you, John. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, fellow citizens. It is really a pleasure to be here to talk to you about the news in our organization. And I'd like to just start by having all of the volunteers who are here, which are not all of ours, but we have many volunteers here this evening. I'd just like them to stand up for a minute. If you've been involved with a nonprofit, you know that volunteers are the heart and soul of every organization, and we have some of the very best volunteers in the world. And thank you all for what you do. So as most of you probably know, the Old Bridge Preservation Society was founded in 2010 to preserve the old pontoon swing bridge that connected the island and the mainland for so many years. Within a few months of that summer, we became a nonprofit and a 501c3. We got the bridge moved to its current location on property generously loaned to us by Clarice and Ronnie Holden. And we set about fulfilling the mission that Karen Dombrowski wrote for us, which John has already referenced, bridging our history. Bridging, you notice that part, right? Bridging our history and future through education and preservation. And that is still our mission today. We succeeded in preserving the bridge and restoring it and making it into the museum with the help of many of the people here in this room and many of our neighbors, friends, and visitors who all had stories that went with the old bridge. Not everyone loved it when it was in the water. It occasionally was an inconvenience, or other words that I can't say politely here. But along the way, we collected many stories about the bridge that were part of its history. and we've been sharing those. And we also learn more about the history of the Vesta, our blockade runner that ran aground at what was then called Bald Beach. Aren't you glad they changed the name? Gore changed the name. But we researched the Vesta, we gathered information, we were able to borrow a number of artifacts, and we've been able to tell that story. And we kept on looking for more stories about our area and about Sunset Beach. I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, history was not my favorite subject. It was not until more into my maturity that I began to understand that history was just the story of people who did things, people just like everyone here. You all are part of the history. Everyone here is part of the history of this town. So in the last few months, after a lot of thought and discussion, our board and our executive committee made the decision to change our name to Old Bridge Historical Society because we think this name better reflects what we do and what our mission charges us to do. You know, the Old Bridge will always be at our heart. It's our core, and it will be there and it's preserved, and that's a great thing. But we want to keep collecting more of the story of our history here. So on Wednesday of last week, we officially announced our name change at a ribbon cutting with the Chamber of Commerce. We opened our new exhibit about the history of the town of Sunset Beach. And some of you were here then and some of you were not, but in 1963, the town was founded and incorporated. So in 2013, the 50th anniversary was celebrated. There were events, most especially there was a reception over at Sea Trail in the conference center, and there was a committee involved with preparing for that, and they prepared a number of displays that illustrated with pictures and other data gathered from the minutes of previous council meetings, things that had happened in our history. So thank you very much to our town manager, Hiram Marciano, who has agreed to loan us some of those displays. And we have them up in the museum now, and they're really quite interesting. You know, they're historical. There are little tidbits from the minutes. There was a committee that went through 50 years of minutes for the town and collected interesting little bits and pieces. And I got to be a part of that, and I can tell you it was very interesting. So something for you to keep in mind, somebody be going through your minutes in 50 years. There are some, I'll just tell you one cute little one that's in there. I think this was about 1967. The town had agreed that trash needed to be picked up, and so the council members chipped in to buy the trash cans. And then Ed Gore and another member of the council agreed to collect the trash, and the town would pay them when they had some money. That's actually from the minutes. So we invite everybody to come and enjoy these displays. They were our big thanks, too, to Karen Joseph, who made the displays back in 2013. They're, as I say, entertaining and informative. And we have more exhibits planned for the future. I'll also just tell you a little bit. This summer, we're going to continue our Young Explorers program, which is on Wednesdays, and that's for children. We did a pilot project last year, which we are continuing this year for history walks. So every Thursday at 11 o'clock, people can meet us at the Veterans Memorial in the park, and we will go on a little walk and talk about some of the history and point out a few places that have to do with our history. The other thing that's going on at the bridge this summer is that we have Project PBJ. This is the 4th year that we've done this. We collect peanut butter and jelly, you know, jars of peanut butter, jars of jelly, and we donate them to a local food bank to help children who are nutritionally challenged in the summer when they don't get any school lunch. We have sites all over town, and I'm very happy to say that Town Hall is one of our sites. So you can bring it to the Old Bridge, you can bring it to us, or you can check our website for more information. And our website is theoldbridge.org. So in closing, we want to invite you to help us keep our history from the Native Americans and the early explorers here, all the way through the Revolution, the Civil War, World War II. There's part of our history wrapped up in all of that, and we want to keep it. So come and see us, share your stories. We'd love to hear them, and we'll write them down or record them. We'd love it if you shared your pictures. We can copy those. Or if you have items from the past that you'd like to loan us, we would be delighted to accept that loan for whatever term is desired. So we're a little museum with a lot of stories, and we will always be here as part of the heart of Sunset Beach. So thank you. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Ian, I only have really a couple. One's a thank you, because you keep that area very nice. I mean, it seems to always be improving every time I drive by,
Thank you.
and it's very appealing. Secondly, I always worry about the future, 10, 15 years from now. Has that land been gifted to your organization, or is it on a lease?
We have the gift of the use of that land. The land still belongs to Ron and Clarice Holden.
Is there any duration?
You know, the last time, just recently, we talked about this, and Mr. Holden said he is happy for us to continue using it for the
Okay, so
foreseeable future.
he still owns the,
He still owns that
he still
land.
owns the land, and, okay, thank you.
He does. And we own land right next to that. So we were gifted some land in the past from Ed Gore. So there are 2 lots next to it that we own
Oh,
as the
okay.
old bridge.
So if a new owner ever came, if
We would-
Mr. Holden had to decide to sell, is there another, are you saying that there's other land available?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
We
That's good to know.
We plan to stay for the foreseeable future, but we also have the land
That's
for the
good to know.
foreseeable future.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Charlie.
I'll never forget the night that Ann and Karen Dombrowski presented this to the council, and they went on with their presentation, and I sat there in my seat in the back, and I remember thinking, I wouldn't bet against that pair with a full house. So, being part of several of the town's nonprofits, it's always a pleasure to work with the old bridge. A lot of times all I do is bake cookies and taste cookies, but thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your contributions, and good luck in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You all have to stay for the whole meeting now.
Sorry I'm late. I'll go find your chair somewhere.
Okay, the minutes of approval for May 6th and May 21st.
I'm good with the minutes as they stand.
They're fine with me.
Motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up is public comments on agenda items for this evening. Okay.
You have one.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Karen.
Karen Joseph, 915 Sandpiper Bay Drive. I noticed that one of the items on your agenda is in reference to limiting people who serve on boards. You have been trying for a number of months now to get 5 volunteers for your environmental committee. When the mayor's seat was vacant, only 2 people put in for that job. I think it sends a negative message to volunteers that you want to limit their time of volunteering. Council members are not limited in their service. So I think this is an item that the council should reject, because as far as I'm concerned, it sends yet another negative message, rather than just embracing the people who have come forward and give of their time freely. So I hope you'll consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Anyone else? Town administrator report.
Yes, sir. As we've said earlier, the ERC candidates, we've gotten 4 candidates that have applied. One of those actually is also an ETJ member, so we'll be setting up interviews for y'all in the coming weeks. The living shoreline is almost complete. I want to thank everybody who showed up last week to help with the grass plantings out there. I will admit that I did not stick around myself for that long. I did have other things to do, but it was also hot, so I really commend everybody who came out there and donated their time doing that for us. It looks beautiful out there. The sign that Sunset Vision procured for us is in the room next door. Anybody's welcome to come see it. We're trying to put it out this week or next week. Next week? Yeah, probably next week. The sign will be up in the park. If anybody would like to see it before it goes up, it is in Town Hall. You're welcome to come take a look. So we'll be wrapping that project up. There is still enough material left over that we may be able to do an extension to that living shoreline next year, oyster shells and domes. And also, last week we got the dredge grant back from the state, fully executed. So that is one tick mark off of that. We're still waiting on, as far as the application is concerned, all the letters that finish going out to the property owners that CAMA wants to receive due diligence in our return receipts from the property owners. And those last bit of envelopes went out today. So hopefully we'll get the return receipts or confirmation of a delivery at the very least. And then that they can consider that a full application. That's the last thing holding up the application at the state before they'll consider it a complete application.
When did the 30 days start on that?
On the notices?
The notices?
As soon they'll go out today. So generally speaking, it takes them about 4 or 5 days for certified mail before you can start that 30-day countdown before we can move on with an undeliverable. We found out that several of the addresses were correct. We don't understand why the labeling came back as, what was it termed? Not able to be delivered and non-deliverable. But when we called up and checked on these people and we asked them for their addresses, it's the same address we sent to for the majority of those letters. So now we're sending them with the full return receipts. So one way or another, we'll get back some type of information on either what was delivered, not delivered, and when. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Hiram.
Next to be department reports. Dustin.
I'd like to add that the beach access at 1302 East Main is back open. The work has been completed on it. In the next couple of weeks, we'll start on the east end emergency access, building the Hatter's ramp on the east end. The median is supposed to get paved down there in front of Dave's this coming Friday, if weather's permitting. If not, it'll be first of next week before it gets done.
And that'll be designated for additional
Yeah,
parking
additional parking.
for the park. And we saw some logistics about its setup at this point. So they'll pave it. We'll have them lay out some parking, decide whether the alignment's good and safe,
Yeah.
since we're dealing with travel lanes.
And the sidewalk is completed. All work is done. The contractor finished a couple of days before the deadline.
They look good.
Dustin, I thought the sidewalks came out pretty good.
You did?
And I've observed during my travels that people are using them. So they did a good job. I was very pleased.
Yeah, they did. They did a good job. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin.
John, Stormwater Department.
Good evening. In the report that I indicated that the drainage easement project between Azalea Drive and Shoreline commenced in April, and I'd like to report that it's substantially complete at this time. We still have to stabilize the soil, get some grass growing, and hopefully get a little rain to do that, and monitor what the performance of the drainage that was installed up there, see how it does, and see if we need to tweak anything. Also during April, Dustin and the Public Works crew took me to school on the vac truck and the camera equipment that the town purchased, and we cleaned some of the catch basins on 30th Street and some of the pipe on 30th Street. So we'll be pursuing that obviously at off-season and really get on that as well. So that's all I have right now, unless there's any questions.
What exactly does it mean when you're cleaning the catch basin and the pipe? I mean, you going through cleaning out the pipe, like with a rotor or something like that? Or?
Right, there's the vac truck has a water jet system, and you insert it into the pipe, and it pulls itself through the pipe, pushing the head along and moving the water back with water flow, or all the sediment back with the water flow, and then it comes back to the catch basin, and you vacuum it out. And there was a considerable amount of sediment.
Okay, so it doesn't get pumped into the marshland?
No, sir.
Okay.
No. Good question, though.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Paul, Fire Department.
Does anybody have any specific questions on the numbers on the forms? That's pretty standard, starting to get an uptick in a few areas, but that's starting to get summer related. But I have a few other updates. One, our summer apprentice that we brought on, the summer firefighter apprentice program's off and running. We have one gentleman, college student, that's doing that. He started a couple days before Memorial Day weekend, and he's already contributing on the beach strand and on the fire engine, so that's a good thing. And maybe next meeting I'll drag him in for a little community civics lesson too. So, but he's doing well in that program's so far doing what we want it to do, and hopefully we can improve it moving forward. Many of you probably saw the school buses sitting by the firehouse over the weekend. I sent out a email just to give you all a heads up on that, but training was good. We probably trained around 60 firefighters over the course of 2 days. A vast majority of them are from Sunset Beach, but also Calabash, Ocean Isle, Sunset Harbor, Charlotte Point. So a lot of firefighters from the area were involved with that training too.
Who are the trainers?
I taught this one. So
Thank you. Saved us some money.
right. I've done a lot of school bus extrication and heavy rescue training across the country, so it's in my wheelhouse.
Good, thank you.
And I'd also like to give you a couple updates about the beach. We've had a couple email complaints from citizens, a couple other concerns, so just to kind of make sure we're all on the same page with some of these things. One, we have had a couple life rings that have came up missing on the beach strand. They've been replaced, and actually Chief Claymar's completed a police report, just so that's on record, and I'm also keeping track. So hopefully that doesn't become a recurring issue. Hopefully just isolated over the busy weekend. But we're watching that for sure, and we also ask for all of us in this room and visitors to the town and town residents too to be vigilant and watching and make sure those life rings are there, as they're a life-saving device any one of us can use at any time on the beach strand if there's a distressed swimmer. So if everybody can help us out with that. A couple other minor issues. We had some email correspondence over the weekend about litter on the beach. There is a town ordinance about littering on the beach, and there was actually a citation or two wrote by Beach Patrol regarding littering on the beach over the weekend. But I also have to remind not only myself and the Beach Patrol staff, but all of us humans that we have to be good stewards for the environment and pick up after ourselves. The Beach Patrol staff is minimal compared to the thousands of people on the beach strand, and it'd be nearly impossible for them to see every person littering. So everybody, I ask for your help with if there's a piece of trash or something on the beach, if we can all pick it up and help contribute to keeping the beach strand a beautiful place. Also, several issues with dogs on the beach. As a reminder, this time of year, no dogs are allowed on the beach per the town ordinance between 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. And outside of those hours, they have to be on a leash. So the Beach Patrol staff is certainly out there and enforcing that. So just as a reminder. And that's about it. Anybody have any questions?
I've got one, Chief. Is your littering, when you write the citations, are we doing that for the cigarette butts also? Or where are we at on that?
If people are caught, one of the things that the Beach Patrol staff we have portable ashtrays, and a lot of times if Beach Patrol staff see somebody smoking, they'll offer a portable ashtray to try to prevent them from putting cigarette butts in the sand or burying them. But yeah, it's difficult for staff to catch all of those. Just there's a lot of people, but we do have that to offer people and try to prevent it.
Okay. It's a nasty habit. I don't know why they have to take it to the beach, but they do.
Well, just to let everybody know, we had emails concerning smoking on the beach and wanting it banned. Hiram is looking into that, but I see it as unenforceable. So if people will just pick up their butts and dispose of them properly, we'd have a much cleaner beach.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Good evening.
Chief, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
The April 2019 report is in your packet if you have any questions regarding that. Pretty straightforward summary of our activity for the month. I'd like to add, just kind of piggyback on what the fire chief mentioned with the beach strand and asking folks to help us out. Call 911. Give us a call on the business line. You can remain anonymous if you see somebody out there that's littering up the beach or doing something they shouldn't be doing. We're limited with the number of people we have, Beach Patrol, fire department, so on and so forth. So if we can partner with the community and help make for a safer Sunset Beach and a cleaner Sunset Beach, just give us a call and let us know what you see, and we'll send somebody right out. With that, over the Memorial Day weekend, pretty uneventful. I'm going to knock here before, kind of use that as a litmus test to see going forward what we're going to see in the coming summer months, and if what we saw over Memorial Day weekend is an example of what we're going to see going forward. It looks pretty positive. Of course, we had issues with parking. We had and continue to have our message board sign out there to bring more attention into places that you can and cannot park. It seemed to work pretty well, although I did issue quite a few parking citations. For the most part, I think they were down from the years past. So a lot of presence both with marked patrols, the UTV. So I think that helped as well. If we see a violation as it's occurring, we'll get out and educate the person as they're parking so that we can tell them where they can park and where they can't park. So it was a pretty good weekend. If there's any questions for me, that's all I have.
Do you have a sense that the sidewalks are helping keep the parking organized, or
I think so.
Are they
I would think that
becoming
they
a
are.
problem?
I think where they have put the gravel on the right of way, to help delineate where a driveway is. We've had less of a concern with driveways being blocked. Most everybody knows, regardless of where they're from, you can't park on a sidewalk, you can't block a sidewalk, so they're really paying attention to that. We've had a few issues on the east end, which the town administrator and I talked about today of how to hopefully remedy some of that. But for the most part, if you look in the report, the parking citations, at least for April, it's not a great example. You'll see it better in May, but only 2 citations were issued for sidewalk related. And I know from what I've seen, at least coming through here recently, that's not the biggest number of the citations that we're issuing. So it seems to be working fairly well. Thank you.
Chief, I noticed there's a sign as you go off onto the beach now. It's a
Yes,
big
sir.
portable sign telling you where to park and not to park.
Yes.
Is that
we-
going to be there for the remainder? Or?
Well, we budgeted for that in this fiscal year, so that's brand new to us. And we plan on getting it there on the weekends, at least during check-in, so people know. And of course, we have a higher concentration of day trippers over the weekend. So we want to keep it there with different messages. It was suggested by you, I believe, fireworks message for 4th of July. That's definitely something we're going to do. But there's a demand for it elsewhere as well. There's folks that have concerns about speeding in their neighborhoods, and that sign also has a radar unit in it, so it can tell you how fast you're going, and bring attention to those issues. So it's going to be moved around, but we're going to use it a lot on the island because it seems to be very effective.
Well, yeah, and it's right there, so
You can't miss
you
it.
see it. You see it coming in. So if you choose
Very
to
true.
park on the bike trail, on the
Yes, sir.
bicycle trail, that's on you.
Exactly.
You sent an email about a problem at Walgreens.
Yes.
Did that get resolved, or how is?
We've identified the females that were in that posting, just in case the council's not aware, and for the community. We had an incident where a gentleman went out to check on his vehicle. He didn't think he had locked it, and he saw somebody getting out of his vehicle. And he approached this person, was behind their vehicle. When he engaged with them, they put the car in reverse and knocked him down. So we were looking to identify both. There was 2 men and 2 women in the vehicle. We have identified all the people involved. Charges are pending, and we have not located the individual that we're looking for. Tips continue to roll in. The community's been great. The power of social media was amazing. We had names on the 2 females probably within 5 minutes of that post going up. So we're hopeful that we're going to have an apprehension.
And the fellow who
soon.
got hit by the car?
He's fine, minor injuries, but he's shaken up, of course, but he's overall good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything
Keep
else?
up the good work, Ken.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Todd?
All right. We've had a pretty steady month over the past 30 days with 6 new single-family homes being permitted, as well as 6 certificate of occupancies being granted over the period. So right now, we've got 22 homes under construction on the mainland and another 22 homes under construction on the island. Some of the things we got coming up in our department, there's a 72-unit apartment complex coming up for the for this month's planning board. That's going to be reviewed by the planning board on Thursday. We've gone through the review process on that project, been answering some emails and some questions that have been coming in from various members of the community, as well as some of the elected and appointed officials. We've also got a text amendment coming up to the UDO that would limit the types of artificial landscaping materials being used in, environmentally sensitive areas near the estuarine shorelines, in floodways, flood zones, things of that nature. Things like your rubber mulches and that type of landscaping materials. Also scheduled for this Thursday would be a planning board training session. The Cape Fear Council of Governments will be providing that service. They provide that service once a year, free of charge to every municipality in their jurisdiction. So looking forward to having that with the planning board and getting everybody up to speed on the latest and greatest general statute changes and the do's and do nots in local government as we go through the process. Doing a little bit of code enforcement, trying to work with Dollar General on their spoke to several of their representatives on the landscaping issues, getting that cleaned up. Sent out some letters for overgrown lots and some fence violations that have taken place across the town, as well as worked with a couple builders to get some construction sites cleaned up and get their silt fence back up and keep their sites tidy for everybody. So when we do have any windstorms or things of that nature, the whole island doesn't suffer the consequences of that. Other than that, numbers are there. If you have any questions about anything here or in my weekly reports, just let me know.
Now, this 72-unit apartment complex, that hasn't been determined what kind of a complex that is, right? I'm getting emails over the weekend saying it's a, low-cost housing complex.
Well,
I can't believe you're doing this to us and all that.
Sure, I understand. That pops up every time there's any kind of a apartment complex, regardless of what community you're in. But in North Carolina, we're not allowed to make decisions based on demographics or income levels. We can only look at the UDO, the specifics of the requirements in the ordinance as to what the general guidelines are within our community. So we're reviewing it from that standpoint, which is what we're legally obligated to do.
And it meets all that criteria.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And planning board, like I said, will review it for approval on Thursday morning.
And just for clarification, we're not allowed to dictate business practices for anybody. Apartments, businesses, whatever. It's, it's
Protected.
land use, not business.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
Thank you.
Finance, Tara?
Everything is still on track with the current budget. We have gotten one of our payments for Florence, which will help with our fund balance. It was the middle,
The 84,000?
the 85,000. We're still waiting on additional, but we're supposed to have it before the end of the fiscal year, so I'm hoping that that's the case. We had slowed spending down, and within the next week or so, it'll be pretty much frozen, other than salaries and necessities, which will help reduce the appropriated fund balance that we have. And at the next council meeting, I'll be bringing a budget amendment just to clean up all the financials and
For this year.
for this year.
Yeah.
Yep. Is there any questions on the report?
For the stormwater, we have 2% of the budget left over.
That's going to be a budget amendment. Yeah, that, as I think it was Azalea came in higher than what was estimated in the beginning. And then we also had, we had the plan, but issues were popping up everywhere towards the beginning of it was towards the beginning of the fiscal year.
As some of y'all recall, we had all that record rain last year. A lot of that peaked in July through right before Florence, and those caused several issues that weren't budgeted for or planned for, but we had to fix. Rich Baker, while he was here, did help bring down some of the costs because he did some work in-house. But some of the work we just couldn't do in-house anyway, and we were at the mercy of getting it contracted. But it was either we had to make the fixes, or there'd been property damage if we had it.
It'll be around between 10 and 12,000. I don't have the exact number with me, but that's approximately what the budget amendment for stormwater will be.
Tara,
Yes.
on page 67 of the meeting packet, you talk about the fund balance and the council's direction to maintain a minimal available fund of 75% of our fund balance. The general fund expenditures,
Okay.
that is required by the local government commission, is it not?
The 75%?
Yes.
No. That is per your policy. The local government commission, it's not cut and dry what they want you to have as your fund balance. If you get down to 8%, they're going to come in and take over and
Yes.
fire everybody and raise your taxes. But before you get to that point, they'll start sending you letters saying, hey, you need to raise your taxes, you need to cut your spending, you need to fix your fund balance. That's usually around, I think, 25% I've seen, things like that. It depends on where you are. Like a coastal town has to have a stronger fund balance because you're more prone to having a hurricane. So they kind of look at that and they expect the finance director to make sure that they have a strong fund balance, but there's no like specific number. 8% is like, that's it. You better have it.
I know Sunset Beach, a number of years ago, had some rumblings of the local government commission
Okay.
being concerned with our fund balance. And thanks to Rich Soretta and Carol Scott, we got it back in shape.
Yeah, well, as of the last audit, it was at 101%, which is
That's great.
perfect.
That's absolutely wonderful. And just so everybody knows, the local government commission was formed during the Depression in 1930 because during that time North Carolina municipalities almost went bankrupt. And in fact, the state of North Carolina had to sell off some of its public trust for education. So they set up this group to monitor towns so that if we ever have that come close again, we will not be in any danger of going bankrupt. So I thought people might like to know that that's a nice thing we have looking over our shoulder.
Yeah, they also manage all the debt, any like specific debts for towns and things like that. So you can't go too far into debt either. Is there any other questions?
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks.
Okay. And that does it for the departmental reports. Next up will be old business. Number 1, dredging grant. No conflict of interest.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm having a hard time hearing for myself, so I hope this comes out clear if you can hear me. I've been somehow accused of delaying the dredging program. I don't know why or how, when I don't have any control directly or indirectly with the permit. There was 2 components to this program. The permit that's still in either approval stage, review stage, or what have you. And there was the grant. And I did communicate with the Water Resources Commission because I had a concern. And I'll express that concern. And I would like this to be a part of the record. The no conflict of interest statement signed by Councilman Corbett that was required by the Water Resources Commission with the assistance of Attorney Richardson speaks for itself. It was approved, if you didn't know that. I am satisfied with this modification that was previously omitted and now has been recognized and properly addressed. To be clear, I was never against the grant that some have stated merely for political posture. Legal or not, this is me, my personal feelings coupled with my professional ethics training and the ethics courses that I taught to both faculty and staff would not permit me or any of my former colleagues to participate in any program knowing there would be a financial benefit. Personally, I would have recused myself in order to avoid even the slightest perception or appearance of a conflict of interest. For these reasons, I have expected others to do the same, while also recognizing that many of us in this room already have a predisposed opinions on inherited facts or desires without any information. I will continue my efforts to promote due diligence, transparency, and accountability. This should be our fiduciary responsibility as an elected official to all the taxpayers. It is mine. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, Charlie.
from day one that the conflict of interest issue came up, there has been no conflict of interest. Your personal opinion does not enter into that, Mr. Serrato.
Grady, can you speak up, because I can't.
He's not speaking yet.
I can't hear very well. Wish I could put my ear to a speaker.
Does council wish for me to weigh in on this? Mr. Serrato's previous training in ethics with his colleagues and his background is fine, but we're talking about town council's affirmative duty to vote. We're not talking about general ethics background training in a private enterprise, in a private business. I have to weigh, as a town attorney, the law that requires each one of you to affirmatively vote and do town business on a continuum of what is and is not a direct financial benefit or an impermissible conflict of interest. There's no right or wrong answer. It is a continuum. I've said this at least 3 times to Mr. Serrato and other members of council and to the public. My job as a town attorney is to make sure that the town, as I see it, follows the law as I understand the law to be. I'm not a judge, don't profess to be. I'm your town attorney. And I've weighed all the factors in this, Mr. Serrato. Okay? I've weighed looking at what the grant involves. There was nothing omitted. I don't know what you're talking about there. But I will tell you that with respect to the conflict of interest certificate, I've weighed in on your allegations as to a conflict by Mr. Corbett. I've looked at the facts on the continuum as I'm required to do and given you my legal opinion. And I don't find there to be a conflict of interest. And it's certainly not one that outweighs Councilman Corbett's affirmative duty to vote as a council member. Period. I've gone over and revised the conflict of interest certificate so that it is narrowly drawn, specific to this grant application and the dredging grant and the dredging that's involved. If someone wishes to challenge that in court, I suppose they can. Again, maybe a judge disagrees with me. There's no right or wrong answer. It's all on a fact-specific determination. I'm not perfect, but I do try to do my job to the best of my ability. And again, nothing was omitted. I'm unaware of anything that was omitted with anything with respect to the town's grant application. At best, there was an expired grant application materials. Was nothing intentionally omitted. I don't even know what you're talking about. It's not just a financial benefit. It's a direct financial benefit. And I've talked about this as well. When you look at the continuum, and I've got 300 or 350 or more property owners abutting areas that are going to be dredged, and Councilman Corbett happens to be one of them. In my estimation, there's not a direct financial benefit if you even assume that the material that's been proffered for a financial benefit is competent evidence. And I would submit to you it's not. I have nothing else to add. Anybody have questions for me?
No, I think I understand what you're saying, and hopefully you understand what I said.
But when you talk about a predisposition or a predisposed opinion, I've never had one since serving this town, beginning in 2014, and I hope that I can say I never will. I go into it analyzing the situation. Nothing different than if you go back to,
Brady,
if you
if
go
I
back to
may.
some, if you go
Let him finish.
All right.
If you go back to Sunset Beach West litigation, I kept an open mind, I did my research, we filed the suit for the protection of the town and the town's interest in it. So I think I have demonstrated the ability to keep an open mind, and I certainly don't have any predisposed opinions about anything.
Thank you,
Well,
Gordon.
I couldn't hear all, but a predisposition, decision or opinion is sometimes conditioned or made when all of us do not have all of the information. That's an inherited thing, okay? It's just like when the Beacon criticized me because when I first came down south, I was concerned about conflict of interest and preserving the beach. Well, I always have found that when developers sit on public boards as councilmen or women, there's an inherent conflict of interest. Now, you know what that is. I don't need to explain it. So that's all I'm saying. It's subjective. You're not going to find it in any law books. I understand that. That's how I was trained.
But
So,
again, your
I
training,
appreciate what you said.
your training is not with respect to serving as a town official on a town board. I've reviewed everything you've submitted to me, Mr. Serrato, and nothing changes my opinion as to Mr. Corbett and his ability to vote on the dredging and the grant application. I've reviewed everything you've given me.
Okay. I respect that.
I have a comment.
Go ahead, Jim. Go ahead.
I've been listening to these allegations for close to 3 years. I've been listening to these allegations for close to 3 years. Is that clear? And they have been addressed for close to...
They have been addressed.
And they have been addressed for...
That's right, and that's what
They
I
have
said.
been addressed for close to 3 years, with the first formal time I did it on May 1st, 2017. I addressed your money issues, I addressed my political issues, you know, and you continue to harass me, to challenge my integrity, to challenge the legal judgment of our town attorney, to challenge the performance of our town staff and administrator. I think it's time for you to stop. Just cease and desist, please. And your sense of what ethics are really kind of jaded.
Really?
Yes.
Let me say this. I will give you a copy of my statement. Let me say this. The town failed to self-report on November 8th, 2018. Let me say this. Only you had to sign this no conflict of interest statement. Mr. Nern didn't, I didn't, Ms. Harris didn't, and Mr. Benton didn't. It was you. Don't run to the attorney.
I'm not running to the attorney. I'm waiting for you to finish.
Let me finish. I didn't have to sign this. You were required to sign this. And you had the assistance of the town attorney modify this certification. Is that correct, Mr. Richardson?
No,
I'm
sir.
not an attorney. I'm just asking you. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Thank you.
You're not correct.
That's all I'm saying.
May
It's something that I would never do.
may I respond,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
What all of your statements, particularly about your ethics and that, leave off the bit that the Water Resources Commission did not raise this issue until you articulated an email campaign to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, alleging that I had a conflict of interest. And in the course of doing that, you made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 allegations in a summary statement that have been refuted. They're on a record, but they have been refuted. I'm still speaking, please. They are on the public record because you continue to fabricate things and put them on a public record.
Mr. Public record. You can't fabricate public records.
Mr. Mayor,
You did, right there.
Go ahead, Jen.
point of order, I have not had a chance to speak. And
Lisa, could
several
you make a
others
copy of this for all the council members?
have spoken more than once.
Go ahead.
I don't want a copy.
But I would like to say, and I would hope that tonight will be the end of this, and that Mr. Corbett and Mr. Serrato, please keep this outside this chamber from this point on. It does nothing to serve this town well to continue these arguments here on this dais.
Just, may I,
Yes, go.
Mr. Mayor, weigh in on a couple of things. The conflict of interest certificate that the state asked for Mr. Corbett to fill out was brought about as a result of allegations of perceived conflict of interest. Not once did I ever confer with Mr. Corbett with respect to his opinion on the revisions I was seeking. I only looked at the initial draft of the conflict of interest certificate that the state proffered to the town and reviewed it through the lens as the town attorney. And I, in concert with Susan Renton in my office, with the state's attorney in charge of this matter, went through it and revised it to narrow the scope, to narrow it down. It was a very broad certificate, and we were just dealing with the grant application for the dredging, and we wanted to ensure that the town wouldn't be accused of unwittingly signing some conflict of interest certificate through a counselor that had nothing to do with the dredging and the grant application. And that's it. And then once the state and the town agreed on the terms, it was submitted to Mr. Corbett for him to review, and if it met with his approval, to sign it and return it to Lisa Anglin and Mr. Marziano. I didn't review anything on behalf of Mr. Corbett individually, nor would I.
Charlie, do you have anything?
Yes, but I'm going to keep it to myself.
Jan, do you have anything else?
Nothing other than just what I said.
All right, what do you want to do with this?
Nothing. There's nothing to do.
The only reason it's on there is Mr. Serrato wanted to get his point across and explain himself for the 18th time. Same stuff every time.
Okay, it's gone now. I hope we can put this down because we have the grant in hand. So, all right, next up is dredging suggestion from Dr. Richard Hilderman, and Jan has something to say on that.
Yes, I would, I gather by reading this that this is being put on the disposition schedule, disposition of director.
Jan, speak up.
I'm sorry, I turned my head the wrong way. I would like to speak a little bit about Dr. Hilderman's suggestion. He has offered a compromise, and I'm not saying that we should take his compromise. I'm just asking that we listen to him. I've been concerned about the project from the very beginning and the length of time it's taken, and I think that one reason it has taken so much time is because this dredging project is such of a greater size and scope than our dredging projects in the past. And I happen to know a little bit of history about the Tubbs Inlet area, and I know how the state has reacted to some permit requests that have been, and I would like to share a little bit of that with you, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am, go
Okay, in 1970, the Gore Dredging Company moved Tubbs Inlet west to align it with the town limits. He wanted Tubbs Inlet, he wanted the inlet to separate Ocean Isle and Sunset Beach. Prior to that movement, part of Sunset Beach was in Ocean Isle. So, anyway, when he moved the inlet, he overshot the runway and he took private property off of Ocean Isle, and he was sued on that for $1.4 million. So, you know, there is action that happens when people start messing around with Tubbs Inlet. Then in 1981, Odell Williamson wanted to dredge Tubbs Inlet also. Sunset Beach was totally against that because they felt that that dredging of that inlet, and it was called a shallow inlet, they felt that that dredging would cause harm to Sunset Beach. It would cause erosion on Sunset Beach. And it went so far as Sunset Beach appealed it to the Coastal Resources Commission in 1981. And the Coastal Resources Commission agreed with the scientists and with the town of Sunset Beach, and they revoked the permit for that dredging. So I can see where the state is being very careful with what we're requesting to do. Then in 2001, the homeowners on Ocean Isle Beach wanted to dredge Old Sound Creek. And they said that they would approve of the permit only if, and I would like to read to you the conditions that the state put on that permit. Number 1, long-term maintenance dredging should be addressed and the responsible agency for such maintenance should be identified. Consideration of Tubbs Inlet and Jinks Creek maintenance dredging should be addressed and responsible agency for such should be identified. Spoil areas for unsuitable material should be provided for before approval of application approval. The Ocean Isle Beach homeowners group did not provide that information for the permitting process. And in the time period of the public comments, after the public comments came in, the state went back and required that an EIS be performed. And at that time, the homeowners dropped the project because an EIS was way too expensive. So those are some things that have happened down there that I think we all should be aware of. It's not just any old little creek somewhere. It's a very fragile, sensitive area. And also, the state in one of these permits compared Tubbs Inlet to Mason Inlet, that's up between Shell Island, and also Moffett and Nichols compared our project as to being very much like the project at Mason Inlet. And to this day, the Shell Island property owners are paying for maintenance on that inlet. I just don't want to see our town be saddled with something that we really need to think twice about. So I think a compromise position might be helpful for us to hear.
There was an article in the Star News today, I don't know if anybody saw it, but they say that sea levels are rising a lot faster than anticipated. I don't know what that means, I'm not a scientist. But I think it behooves us to practice due diligence. And I don't know if we've ever approved anyone or not to ever make a presentation. I don't recall us ever doing it. I recall us making a suggestion to have a presentation, but I never recalled a formal approval by the council to invite someone or disinvite someone. So I'm a little confused at that end, but I think the more information that we have, the better decision we'll make.
Well, we did have a presentation 2 two experts. One was Dr. Pisteria, if I'm saying that right. If I'm saying it wrong, I
Pietrafesa,
apologize.
Dr. Pietrafesa.
Pietrafesa, thank you. And everybody had their say. I have a couple of questions. You say Ocean Isle Beach sued Mr. Gore for 1.4 million.
Not Ocean Isle, a private property owner did.
Okay. And what was the result of that suit?
I don't know. It was back in 1970. But there's a newspaper article about it.
Well, I don't know why you would bring that up. And my understanding is that there will be a maintenance dredging fund set up that the homeowners affected by it will pay into yearly, and that would pay for the maintenance dredging.
I understand that, and I agree with that concept. I'm just worried that it has taken the state so long to approve this, and they may be having concerns. And if they are, if we have somebody that has something to suggest, why don't we listen to him?
Well, there are several reasons. Number one, this is not Mr. Hilderman's area of expertise. It's far from it.
Say that again?
This is not Mr. Hilderman's area of expertise. And I would like to read an email from Greg Weiss, who was our mayor, to Mr. Hilderman, dated December 21st, 2018. Mayor Weiss included this to the council members. Council members, a short while ago I sent this request to Richard Hilderman. It properly identifies the message as coming from me as an individual. I think you all know that I have grown increasingly frustrated by the manner in which Richard is behaving. Many call it bullying.
Mr. Mayor, point of order. Point of order.
I'm
Criticizing a
talking.
citizen in public that was meant for the council, although it's public record, is inappropriate.
It's public record. Transparency, Mr. Serrato, transparency. Many have called it bullying, and the various statements he is making about science, and that's in parentheses, about council ignoring science, about favoring the dredging of South Jenks Creek as somehow being tantamount to not believing in climate change or rising sea levels, etc., etc. The gentlest way I can say is that I find his approach and statements highly debatable. One part of this that I find to be odd is that he has not shared with us or the community examples of the science we are ignoring. All we keep getting is the "don't mess with Mother Nature" bromide. A nice idea, but one that would rather preposterously silly in complex situations and not what one would call a scientific conclusion. This request is to give him the opportunity to show us scientific literature that he has not yet shown. I have always admired Richard, and I know he means well, but he has gotten way off track in his comments and insinuations. He continually argues the council should be held accountable. That's fair. I also think it is fair that he should be held accountable. And that was Major Gregory Weiss.
Mr. Mayor?
Go on, Jan.
Let Jan go.
I believe this position that Dr. Hilderman is offering has the expertise of scientists as well, signing on to this. we listened to a presentation 2 meetings ago from Sunset Vision. We listened to that, and we were wanting to even vote on that that night. How is this any different?
Like I said, I don't know why we're going through a formal process to approve a presentation, but I find this basically a double standard. And back in my good old human resources days, it would be classified as discrimination. Now, I am not an expert on dredging. I am not a scientist. Engineers and scientists is like oil and water. Engineers think they can do anything. And that's why we pay afterwards, because we fail our due diligence. We need as much scientific information as possible. Dr. Hildeman has done extensive study on dredging. You may not like his personality. He's just a typical faculty member that always thinks they're right. But you can learn a hell of a lot from them. And if we're going to put blinders on and not know the impact of all our decisions so that we can make either adjustments to the state, and by his recommendation based on a business point of view, it could save us money from dredging if we don't have to dredge that deeply. And here we go again. Erosion, flooding. May not happen in our lifetime, but damn, it's going to happen. And I don't want people looking back and saying that council in 2019 didn't know what the hell they were doing. And it's our fiduciary responsibility to get as much information as possible. Hell, the first shovel's not going to go down at least until November 2020, maybe. Maybe. There's a reason why the state is taking their time. There's a reason why the state is studying this, because they know the impact. Because they know the impact and how severe in this whole area is and how fragile. It's not about whether you want to dredge or not dredge. That's not the issue. We need the information. And if he's not invited to this meeting, it just goes to show there is predisposition, and there is discrimination, and there is retaliation.
All right, Rich. Nobody's retaliating against anybody. You sent me this.
Mr. Mayor?
I do. I know.
Mr. Mayor, may I make a motion, please?
Yes,
I haven't
ma'am.
had a chance to speak yet.
Go ahead, John.
Mr. Serrato, I have to agree that you are one very impressive orator.
No, I'm not.
You are. You are.
John, I'm going to tell you
listen,
a story.
Listen,
When
listen.
I was young, I
I'm
couldn't talk.
I'm still speaking.
Mr.
here.
Mayor, would you stop Mr. Serrato from continually interrupting?
Okay. You throw together a lot of words that sound very impressive, but there's not a whole lot of substance behind them. The key thing in this activity here at this point in time, yes, I do not want to hear Dr. Hildeman give another presentation and continue the same process that he has done over the last 3 years of coming up with every option that he could to point out why we should not be dredging. We are at a stage now where the permit application has been submitted to the state. We have paid a contractor with the expertise to come up with a design, to answer the questions, to answer the challenges, and we have provided all of that information to the state. It's time now to stop, if you will, harassing the state agencies, which we have done from this community very effectively for the last couple of years, and let them go ahead and do the review and come up and tell us what they think about our application to do the dredging. And they will tell us whether it's too deep, too narrow, too wide, too shallow. They will tell us whether the buildup of sand in the middle of the junction of Tubbs Creek and Jinks Creek, or Tubbs Inlet and Jinks Creek, is that going to be susceptible to, if you dredge that, will that increase or decrease the potential for flooding? Or, in my engineering-based mind, if you take a body of water and you fill it full of sand, you're going to block the water from flowing through, and it's going to go someplace else. My point is, it's time to stop trying to come up with different courses of action, different studies, recreating the wheel. Let the state make their review of our application and come up and tell us what they think we can do and cannot do. And at that point in time, then we have discussions of which way we're going to go. Until then, we're flapping our lips.
Mr. Mayor, in the Ocean Isle homeowners permit in 2001, the engineering firm that they hired, just like we've hired an engineering firm, and that application went through a public comment period, just like our application will go through a public comment period. This notebook right here is research that proved that their engineering firm misrepresented the facts on that permit application. There's proof right in here in this book, and anybody is welcome to look at it. I think we need to do our due diligence and listen to every... Mr. Hilderman it's not his science, it's the scientist's science. And I'm going to make a motion, if I may. I move that we hear Mr. Hilderman out about this suggestion that he has.
I am sorry that this has come to a motion, but I will have to second it. And I want to say something else. The Environmental Resource Committee, Jan, you were on it, help me out, my memory's going, stated that they were not against dredging. They did not make an opinion. They were neutral and only provided scientific evidence and research by coastal scientists. It was this council, I was on it, Mr. Corbett was on it, Carol Scott was on it, Peter Larkin was on it, and Mark Benton was on it, refused to even accept the report. That is called arrogance. And also, the state validated the report. The state scientists and engineers validated the report, and this council didn't even accept it. What does that tell anyone? I will second the motion, Ms. Harris.
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Charlie.
The ERC was told they were to report to the council. They did not follow those directions, and they sent their report in anyway. Ms. Scott was the one who was most upset with them not following council directions. Now, you can quote everything you want. You know, I still want to see the scientific proof, but I want to see it from a scientist that has the expertise in that area.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Mayor, Jan,
Are you finished?
I'm finished.
I was on the ERC. The minute that document, the ERC was an appointed committee by this board. That means it is a public, it is subject to public open meetings rules. The minute that document became a document, it was open to the public. Nobody violated anything by sharing that document because it was and is a public document.
You violated council directions. We are council, we follow rules. You wouldn't see any other volunteer group, planning board, or whatever disregard exactly what the council says.
The council never had the rule. It was made up after the fact because the council wanted to dredge and they didn't want to hear anything negative about dredging. The committee did not violate any rules. That is record, not an opinion. Secondly, in their presentation, they never said, we're for dredging, we're against dredging. Dr. Hildeman supports dredging. I support dredging. Ms. Harris supports dredging. The only thing I'm very sad about the whole process, it's being forced upon the citizens without their okay and input. And I find that, I'm sorry, that it violates basic standards to me. This is a permanent program. It's mandated by legislation. The people in 3 or 4 years are not going to have a choice whether they're going to dredge or not dredge. It's mandated by the grant.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to call the question.
Well,
Thank you.
I'd like to respond if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
One, I'd like to see what it was where the state validated the study. I haven't seen that. I haven't heard it happening. Two, in your presentation here, I'm confusing myself. You mentioned in your statement there that the opinion of the people who are affected by the dredging have not been asked. For about 3 years, you've been trying to get a survey to be done, and we've been saying, I have been saying at least, it's not time to do a survey because we don't have the facts, we don't know what's going to be dredged, we don't know what the program is. We've gotten to the point with our permit application that those questions have been answered. And the state has sent out an adjacent riparian property notice. This was discussed earlier, where each of the 350 or however many property owners have to respond and give their opinion whether they accept this or not. That survey is being conducted now, and this is the appropriate time when the permit is ready to be reviewed by the state agencies. And we've got to that point now. Anything we do that gets in the way of finishing the survey of the residents, of letting the state review the permit, is a distraction, a delaying mechanism. These questions about the future cost of mandatory management, maintenance dredging, I view that as scare tactics. I want to let the state make their decision and then give us some facts to work with instead of opinions.
Mr. Mayor,
I'm
I
sorry.
said nothing that wasn't a fact, and I said nothing to mean scare tactics. I approve of this dredging. This dredging should be done, but it's taken forever to do. And why? Because we're asking for the world.
And we're also communicating on a regular basis with all the state agencies that are involved so that.
And none of what I am suggesting is a delay factor. The only thing that I am suggesting is that we inform our citizens, that we let our citizens know what we're doing. That's all I am suggesting.
Hiram, can I
And
ask?
with that, I would like to call the question.
Sure.
All right, just one more
Call the
comment.
question.
A comment was made. Hiram, when the abutters get their notice, that's not a survey, is it?
It's not a survey,
Thank you.
but there is a form on there that gives them the option to make their comment back to the DCM regarding their approval or disapproval of the project if they so choose to send it in.
No. When-
No, but that is the rule from the state. That's what got sent out. They have the right to comment based on the letter that gets sent to them.
If I am an abutter, I'm one of the 350 people. I'm an abutter. I'm going to get a letter. Is the letter going to say, do you approve of this project? Do you want this project? What is your opinion on this project?
It asks you your opinion of whether you're okay with the project as proposed, or if you have questions, or if you are in disagreement with the project.
It asks if you have any objections to it.
It does?
Yes.
sir.
All CAM permit applications have to send that notice
Okay.
out, major, general, and minor.
Well, I think
May I
that's something that the town should have done,
The town did
as a
send those
matter of
letters out.
courtesy.
One more time.
The town is sending these letters out, and the pertinent statement is, if no comments are provided within the 30-day period, DCM will consider the response as, quote, "no objection," unquote.
Right.
They're asking for opinions.
Ms. Harris called the question.
Thank you.
I have called, I've called the question.
Second.
Call the vote.
Call the vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
No.
No. Leave it on me.
Was that his?
Mr. Mayor, would you like to state a reason?
A reason for voting against this?
Yes.
I put it on there. I didn't agree with it. I put it on there so it could be heard and that everybody could hash it out. That was the only reason I had to put this on here. It's all been done, you've hashed it out, and now we voted on it. I think personally, this has gone on way too long. I mean, we're digging into 3 years, and all we've done is bring up the same old thing. The same old thing. This conflict of interest, I've been seeing this for 3 years, and where are we? All we did was pay the town attorney thousands of dollars on something that we already knew was going to happen. We knew what the answer to this was already. There is no conflict of interest. It was said in 2018, it was said in 2017, now we're into 2019, and we're saying the same thing. So it has to come to an end, and we put it to an end tonight. There is no conflict of interest. As to Mr. Hilderman, I put it on this agenda so you folks could talk about it and see what you wanted to do. I have been put in the position tonight to vote on that. Mr. Benton is not here, so I had to make a vote. My vote is no. I think that's all I need to say about it. I was never for it. I just wanted you to have your piece. That's why you got this on here now. You asked for it 3 days ago. I've bent over backwards to get this put on here for you, so you could have your piece. I did not want to go and put it on the directives tonight
Well-
and have it for a month down the road. I wanted you to be able to get it out there, and I've done that.
Did you? And
I
what did you
not
tell?
know I was going to be able to vote on this tonight, but I have made my vote. No. We're done. Next up,
Well,
we're done
that's
with
not
it,
what
Rick.
you told me this afternoon. That's
didn't
all I'm
tell
going
you
to say.
anything.
That's all I'm going to say
I
in a
didn't tell you
conversation.
anything.
In a conversation, you told me that he should have the right to make a presentation. What changed your mind?
I did not tell you that. What are you talking about? I wanted this on here for you. You asked to have this put on here.
It's for the town, not for
Okay.
me.
But then you came back on me on this weekend and acted like it was put on the agenda. And I had to send you another email. So, no, I did this to get it put out there and get it taken care of, because I'm tired of hearing about this dredging. Every time we turn around, there is another obstacle thrown in here, and this conflict of interest thing is, we have done nothing but waste the town's money, paying an attorney to go over and over this. Wait, I know.
Yeah.
Okay. it's
Did you
done.
sign it?
Mr.
You don't
Mayor.
have to.
No, I don't have to.
No,
Mr.
I understand that.
We're moving on.
Mr. Mayor, my position was not to delay anything, just to give a little more information. I don't have any opinion on the conflict of interest. I just wanted the people to know that there is a history down at Tubbs Inlet, and there is a history of problems. That's all I wanted people to know.
Well, it's in the state's hands now. So
It is.
The state will either issue it to us or they won't. The state has scientists, the state has all these people working for them. They know what is going to go on. I trust the state to tell us. If they don't think it's any good, they won't approve it. So I'm all for right now leaving this up to the state and moving forward, because it's been going around in circles, especially the last 3 months. This has been craziness. Now we're on to number 5, boat ownership.
Number 3.
Number 3, I'm sorry. April 1st, 2019 minutes, appeal request. Rich.
I don't know where we are.
This is your request to modify the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to remove this from the agenda, because you know something? I don't think this town wants any information. I think they've already made up their mind. And in my 40 years working for a tremendous engineering school, no one ever made up their mind. We never asked the homeowners if they would be interested in this project. And you think this council's going to vote for a voting questionnaire to see what their needs would be? Hell no.
We're going to find out.
Really? Well, the agenda
Okay,
is
have
on.
you removed this?
Mr.
I
Serrato,
have the request.
Mr. Serrato.
I can't hear. Craig.
Okay,
Tough time.
I understand. We're on the third item of old business, which is your appeal request of minutes that were approved on April 1, 2019.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Please try and follow.
I thought we were on the vote ownership questionnaire,
No.
but I'll save that later.
What do we do?
It's coming on.
Oh, my God. On April 1st, I was asked to leave a meeting. The minutes,
Can we have some quiet out there, please?
can you hear me? On April 1st, I was asked to leave a meeting. The minutes described my conduct as unruly and disruptive. Honestly, I went home, I watched the video at least 10 or 15 times. I had people who attended the meeting and told me I did nothing wrong. And I watched the video again, and I did nothing wrong. So, I notified the local government commission, and they said the first step in the process, the grievance process, is to notify the mayor, and the mayor was a resident, a citizen at the time, and was here at the meeting. He observed it. But they also asked me to ask the town attorney for him to observe it, to him to review it. Now, I know what unruly is, and I know what disruption is. It's not compatible to what occurred. Now, I don't know if Mr. Richardson has reviewed the video. I don't know if Mayor Van Warm has viewed the video, although he was here. I don't know. So I'm going to leave that up to them to do their due diligence. I don't think I need a motion. Do I, Grady? I don't think so. Opinions are opinions, but I don't think I need a motion for this. So I'm just asking the two of you at some point to review it. I don't think I need a motion for that, do I?
Well, what's the purpose for which you are, what are you seeking? Are you seeking
I
to
want
have
the
the?
two words
hold on.
unruly and disruptive removed from the minutes.
So you're wanting the minutes altered, you're wanting them amended?
No.
You
The
want-
minutes were approved,
Right, you want those minutes amended?
amended, yes.
Okay. Well,
To remove the words unruly and disruptive.
well, okay. So your agenda item, and I'll just speak, Mayor. Your agenda item is duly noting your objection to the characterization of those minutes, okay? I've not reviewed the videotape yet. No, I haven't. I don't even know if I was here that night. I don't believe I was. But the standard is for the minutes to be a full and accurate accounting at a minimum that includes, 1, actions taken by a board, stated specifically enough to be identified and proved, and 2, proof of any conditions necessary to action, such as the presence of a quorum. Mr. Serrato is effectively asking for the council to amend the minutes. He believes that they are inaccurate. Because the minutes have been approved, they can be modified in only 2 ways. 1, person may bring a legal action challenging the minutes as being incorrect and seeking a court order to correct them. That doesn't apply yet or here tonight. Or 2, council may itself modify its minutes if they are found to be incorrect. Now, Mr. Serrato has noted his objection and the basis for his objections to the minutes and the way they've been characterized. Council can table this item for Mayor, I don't know if you've watched, I have not. Okay. Or the council tonight, if Mr. Serrato wants to put on a motion to have the minutes modified, council may take up that motion as it typically would. I think it's clear that he's noticed his objections in tonight's proceedings, such that it's going to be reflected in the minutes as well.
You hear that?
Make a motion.
Your objection will be noted in these minutes here tonight.
I
Your
understand.
objection
Well,
to
that's
these
part of the
minutes.
record.
Right.
That's part of the record.
Is that good enough? Or you-
No.
Okay, what do you want to do?
Mr. Mayor,
Make a motion.
1 second.
if I remember correctly, I suggested that we remove those 2 words at the meeting, but I do not believe I put it in form of a motion, but there were significant objections among board members to make them even harsher.
John?
The council at the May 6th meeting, when we discussed these minutes, addressing whether it was unruly and disruptive, voted 3-1 to keep the minutes as they were, to approve the minutes, and there was 1 refusal to vote, which automatically became a positive vote, so the official vote was 4-1 to keep the minutes as they were. We addressed this at the last meeting, we discussed it in detail.
Yes, that's on the, it's right here. That's on the report that the folks have. So what are you telling me?
We've already done this.
We've already done it. We don't know what
If
you
you,
want
if
to
you
do.
object to it,
I'm appealing those set of minutes. And you're making it complicated than it is. I want you to review the tape. You told me that I did nothing wrong.
No, I
The-
don't know who you talking to.
Yeah,
I don't know
talking to
who
you.
I
You
told
told
you.
me this afternoon that I did nothing wrong and that Mark and you should be, I
Mr.
don't know, hand paddled or something.
That was 2 weeks ago when I
That
talked
was
to you.
today when I
And
spoke.
today, I told you the same thing I told you 2 weeks ago, that I thought that both of you were in the wrong.
Thank you.
I did not say you were right. You know,
I didn't
that's
say
different from what you just said.
No, it isn't.
I thought Mark acted a little quick. I thought you acted a little arrogant. So you were both at fault. That has been my position since the day I watched it.
And Mr. Serrato, neither the mayor nor I have any authority to set aside minutes on our own unilateral appeal action. It's got to be council action if the minutes are going to be amended, or a court order ordering them to be amended. Or you can make a motion tonight, again, appealing to council that's here, to amend the minutes and have a vote on it.
Okay, I will try that first step. Would like to file a motion to amend the minutes to remove the words unruly and disruptive.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Discussion.
Oh, discussion?
I reviewed it, and in my opinion, having been the person sitting next to Mr. Serrato, I felt the minutes were accurate.
The minutes were accurate.
Okay, let's vote.
I would like to say
Go
one
ahead.
thing.
Go ahead.
You know, it would really, really, really go a long way if we could agree to remove those two words. What is it going to hurt you guys to remove those two words? It's not going to change what happened at the meeting. Mr. Serrato was asked to leave and he left. Those two words are not going to change one thing that happened. But if you two would agree to let's remove two little teeny tiny words, it might help us get along a little better.
Mr. Richardson, are you saying that if they don't remove the words, that I would have to take legal action against the council?
I am saying that if you want the minutes that have already been approved to
No, I
be
understand that.
to be amended, it has to take council action to amend those minutes. If council doesn't amend the minutes the way you want, it's a done.
No, it's not what, it's what should have, it's what the video reflects.
In your
It's
opinion.
it's your perception of the video. You've already heard from Councilors Corbett and Nern how they feel about it. You've heard from Mayor how he feels about it. All I know is this: if you want the minutes revised, you have to have council action or a court order if you're not satisfied with the council's action. So the motion that's on the table
Okay.
is to delete unruly and disruptive. That's the motion. And there needs to be a vote as to whether that motion's going to be
I
granted.
understand that.
If the motion is denied, then your
Okay.
recourse, Mr. Serrato, is a legal action
I understand
asking
that.
for a court order.
I understand that. I understand that.
Mr.
But,
May-
Mr. Richardson, if you view the tape,
Mr. Mayor, call for
Mr.
the
Mayor, I'd
order,
like to
please.
call a question.
yes, okay, but if you review the tape, Mr. Richardson.
So you want me to review the tape on a meeting I wasn't at and weigh in on as to whether or not the council adequately characterized it?
No.
Okay, that's fine. That's my motion. I gave the motion. Was that seconded?
Yes.
We've had our discussion. All in favor
Aye.
Of removing the two words, is that
of removing the two words?
aye?
Aye.
All against?
Nay.
No.
No.
Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that at this point, there's no other items for me to weigh in on. If I'm incorrect, let me know. Otherwise, with the council's blessing, I will take off.
No, sir, Grady, you have a nice night.
I didn't hear a thing. Is that good?
Well, Mr. Serrato, I'm going to be leaving the meeting now unless you want, I'm going to be leaving the meeting now unless you wish for me to stick around.
Thank you, Grady.
Thank you, Grady.
Thank you.
Okay, next up.
All right, don't go so fast.
We dropped Jaguars there.
Number 5.
Boat ownership questionnaire. This is yours also, Rich.
This is about the quote questionnaire. I'm going to remove this from the agenda, Mr. Mayor. because I have come to the conclusion tonight that this council is going to do whatever it wants to do. And to have any discussion or obtain any data to help make a smarter decision is not the order of this council. So I'm going to remove that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, number 6. To select a council liaison for the ABC board. This is also your,
Is that? Mr. Mayor, for years we've had a liaison for the ABC board. We've had one for the planning board, the Board of Adjustments, Sunset at Sunset, and these events are closely monitored by the staff. The ABC board I perceive as different. The ABC board is run by the commission rules, the ABC commission rules in Raleigh. And they have little say, or if any say, about how things are done locally. Now, the council appoints members to the board. And here's why I think we need a liaison. It's just to oversee. It's just a little check and balance. But we have employees that work at, they're not our employees. They work for the state. They work for the ABC Commission. Or the ABC store, I should say. But the ABC Commission really performs very little oversight. There are employees, and there's money involved. And I think it behooves this town to have at least a liaison for the Board of Adjustments, where you appoint the people. They have all been appointed and approved by the council. We appoint them, but I think we need a liaison as an oversight, a check and balance. I'm not going to die of a heart attack if the council refuses. But I think it would be a prudent thing to do. In fact, there's an employee over there now who works 40 hours a week and has been denied state medical benefits. He's on Obamacare. For some reason, the appointees of the board that we appointed don't want to provide him medical care. Now,
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
no, it isn't a point of order. I'm giving background.
That's a state issue, not a town issue.
No, it's not a state issue.
okay.
According to the ABC Commission, it is an issue with the store, the local store. And who manages the local store? Appointees of this council. I don't think it's fair for anyone who was eligible for medical coverage, regardless of whose plan it is, to be denied that opportunity. So, that has nothing to do with this discussion. The discussion is, does the council want a liaison for the ABC board?
Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Charlie.
The state ABC board runs a store, not the town. The town has an ABC board that oversees the ABC store. The last town liaison was Wilson Sherrill, and when he was sitting on council, and he stopped doing that because he didn't think it was necessary. Now, Herb Tinger is the chairman of our ABC board, and he and the board are doing a fine job of keeping track of what the store does.
I'm just going to say that the ABC board, I haven't heard not one bad thing about this ABC board here. I don't see a reason to assign them a babysitter. They're making money. They're not losing money. We have no complaints. They haven't had a liaison since 2015, at the end of 15. So I don't see the reason to put one in now if we don't have any problems that we're trying to fix. We're just saying now that we just want to put one in there, and I don't see the reason for that.
Is there a motion, Mr. Serrato?
Do you have a motion?
I'm not going to bring a motion, because it's going to be probably 4-1 or 3-2.
Okay, we're done with that then. So we're dropping it? Dropping it. Board appointment term limits.
Which one are we on?
Board appointment term limits?
Number 7, it's yours.
It's yours. Busy guy tonight.
I wish this matter could have been addressed earlier. Ms. Joseph says she doesn't like anything to create the impression of negativity. Let me give an example of what that negativity is. My point of view. We recently had 4 Board of Adjustment applicants. Can you hear me? Because I can't hear myself. We recently had 4 Board of Adjustment applicants. 3 males, 1 female. There were 2 vacancies. All 4 people were interviewed. 2 of the candidates, I should say, were on the Board of Adjustments for a number of years. And they've always done excellent work. They're extremely qualified. The 2 other members were also extremely qualified. You got 4 good people and only 2 vacancies, and 2 have been in on the board for years. What do? Well, what the council did was they voted, which our tradition has been, unless there's been, our tradition has been the people who were sitting on the board, who were doing an excellent job and would like to continue to serve, were approved. It was simple. This time we broke with tradition. Only one of the members of the Board of Adjustment were selected. The other one was not. He got hurt. He was hurt. His feelings were hurt. He didn't know why. There was no reason given. No quantified reason given at all. He just wasn't picked. Why? The reason why I had this agenda for a number of months is to avoid this town from hurting people who have provided good quality service for years. And then all of a sudden, we decide, out of the clear blue, that they're no longer needed, without any quantified reason. Well, I'll tell you, in my day, that would have never occurred in my corporation. But it does in government, because we have favorites. So, what I'm recommending is simple, and I hope it makes sense. In order to, I filed a little motion. Our processes should not be designed to hurt people. I'm sorry, I just wasn't built that way, or born that way. And when I see it, I have to speak up. So I'm going to file a motion. And the council and the staff can look at this and see if it makes sense. In order to prevent the unnecessary emotional pain, and believe me, no one enjoys that, especially when we get older. I think we become more sensitive. We'd like to file a motion to have board term limits for the planning board, pay attention, Karen, the Board of Adjustments, pay attention, the ERC committee, and the ABC board, but I can take that out now, to serve no more than 6 years. I think they have 3-year terms, Lisa?
Correct.
Thank you. In other words, no more than 2 terms, unless in the event that no other qualified applicant steps forward during the scheduled vacancy. Does that make sense? I'm asking for advice. Or are we going to continue to be arbitrary and hurt people who volunteer for this, for town work?
Is that a motion, Mr. Mayor?
I can't hear him.
Is that a motion?
Yes, I made a motion.
Is there a second?
Second. Motion dies.
People, I'm
No
awful
second.
sorry.
No
There was-
second. You didn't get a second.
I didn't get a second?
No.
Thank you.
Motion dies.
Someday I'm going to get a yes. Thank you, Karen, okay?
Okay, number 8.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir. Go ahead, John.
why are all the comments being addressed to individuals in the audience?
It shouldn't be.
Oh,
We know better than that.
oh, you're so proper.
Okay. Wait. Easy, Rich. We're getting towards the end, all right? BB1, Planning Board Discussion Report. BB1. Todd?
All right. So at the March 4th, 2019 council meeting, it was requested that the planning board research options involving single-family development in the BB1 zoning district. The council did agree to have the planning board conduct research and provide options regarding this development type in this zoning district. The only clear direction from any council member at the time was from Councilwoman Harris in an email suggesting the elimination of residential uses in this district unless part of mixed use. The planning board held several discussions on March 21st and April 18th of 2019. Several possibilities were discussed to include the following: removal of single-family use from the zoning district BB1, development of an overlay that would restrict the use to only 1st and 27th Streets, tying the use to current ownership of parcels but not allowing the use when land changed ownership, develop more interest in commercial development, revisit the density established for this zone to encourage multifamily use over the single-family use. Ultimately, the items were determined not to be viable solutions by the planning board. Planning board Chairman Tom Vincennes offered the following comments on the pros and cons of the subject, which staff does feel sum up the planning board's discussions pretty nicely. First, start off with the pros. A case could reasonably be made in favor of this change based on the 2017 land use plan that identifies single-family residential as an inappropriate use for Sunset Boulevard South. Desired uses include commercial and retail. Land use plan, page 1010, identifies factors to consider in reviewing development plans. They include suitability of land to accommodate use, capacity of the environment, and compatibility of land use with goals and objectives of the town. C, land use plan, page 1012, identifies this area of BB1 as a designated commercial node. And D, our land use plan survey resulted in 84.4% of respondents viewing growth management, for example, zoning, as a major issue. The cons, what are we hoping to accomplish with this rezoning? Would a 30-foot tall commercial building be any less overwhelming than a 35-foot tall single-family residence? Would this change do anything to promote commercial development? It has been decades since any new commercial development has taken place in this area. The lots are small, parking of concern, and the seasonal nature of the island inhibits successful commercial ventures. The need to consider the impact on property owners in regard to the value of their investments. We reduced allowable density in 2015, which probably impacted property values. The change would further impact those values. So the planning board did discuss all of that at their last meeting, and is requesting guidance on how to proceed further on this issue. They would like more specific direction from the council and the desired goals of this review. And just so you know, Chairman Vincent is here this evening as well. If you have any.
How many properties are we talking about?
Ooh.
How many plats? How many owners?
How many? Oh, I'd have to look that up. I do not know off the top of my head.
Well, wasn't the zoning there changed several years ago? I think Mrs. Harris brought it up. She didn't want multifamily or something about density. So that council changed the rules. Mrs. Harris got what she wanted, and since the owner has tried to sell that property for a commercial venture, the same reasons that the planning board said it would be a seasonal business, there'd be parking issues to deal with. Right now, I think residential is the highest and best use for that property.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead, Jen.
Councilman Nern is correct. I was the person who initiated the 2015 change. But on this issue, and after tonight, I give up.
I'd like to hear.
Common sense. On the density change, that change that was made in 2015. The density change made in 2015 was initiated by Jan and over concern, I think, for the development of the quadra units on 27th Street. The change that we did make to 21.7 dwelling units per acre is consistent with most of the density that we have in this town. So, you know, in effect, what we did was to really make the density in Beach Business 1 consistent with the rest of the town. And in so doing, it prevented quadra units being built on the lots that, as they are, under the size they are on 27th Street, would still allow a duplex to be built, but no longer a quadra unit. So I think, you know, the question is, you know, is making a change in that area to allow only single, or to prohibit single-family development, really going to do anything to promote commercial development, which is really the more desirable use of that area. And, you know, as we said, over the years, we haven't seen anything take place there in a way of commercial development, and a number of reasons. One was cited was parking. We have taken, as a planning board, steps to ease the parking requirements in that area. We did that perhaps only within the last year or so. Yep. But nevertheless, there remains a parking issue there. They're very small lots. In my mind, I think the primary problem is that there's only, a seasonal population out there, 4 or 5 months out of the year. Unless someone's willing to open a business, and only have its stores open that number of years, it's going to be a difficult place to make a dollar. So, I think my opinion, by preventing single-family development in that area, what is the land going to be used for? It's going to sit as it is right now. So we, as Todd started the discussion, I think if you were to choose to eliminate single-family development on Sunset Boulevard South, you could make a pretty strong case for doing so based on our land use plan. However, in so doing, I think we're going to be hurting the property owners there, and I think we do have to give them, consideration as well. So, we talked it over on a couple of occasions and threw around a lot of different ideas, and ultimately decided. I think we really need your guidance. If the council decides that they would like to go ahead with Jan's suggestion, that we prohibit single-family development other than mixed-use development, we'll go ahead and do it, and we'll build a story. However, I think you need to give consideration to the cons as well. So.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Go ahead, John.
In reviewing this, and I did attend a couple of the meetings where the planning board did discuss this issue, I find that the arguments for the cons, in other words, to leave it as it is, to be more compelling than the arguments for the land use plan. Particularly the combination of we still would not eliminate the possibility of a 35-foot building. It doesn't do anything to change or promote commercial development. And probably as critical as anything else, we have people that have been long-term investors in there who, whatever their plans were, each time we make a change in the course of their plans, we have a financial impact on them. My recommendation is to leave the BB1 zoning as it is now.
Charlie?
Well, I've said all I need to say. Do we act on this tonight?
Do we need a motion or just?
They're asking for guidance. If
Right.
you want them to pursue this and proceed on, I think Chairman Vincennes just said they're willing to, if that's what y'all want them to do.
Yeah, we can absolutely dig further into this if you want us to go a different direction. If there's something else you foresee that we haven't discussed, we can certainly look into that or do a little more research.
I
just looking
don't,
for
I
more
don't see any
guidance.
need to continue the
Basically,
process.
you'll just need to make a consensus then either to move forward or not move forward.
I don't feel there's any need to move forward on this.
After listening to both sides, I don't see any need to move forward on it either. If we go back to commercial, it's gonna sit there as empty lots. Nobody's bought those lots in 50 years. I don't know why we would think they're gonna do it now. So I would just, my recommendation is leave it the way it is.
Done?
Good?
Thank you.
Done?
All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the planning board for their work at looking at this.
Okay, we'll go through it.
Anyone need a bathroom break?
Yeah.
Can we have
5-minute recess?
bathroom break?
Sure, 5-minute recess. Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
Budget.
Budget. All right, the next up is the, page 60, the new budget.
Mr. Mayor, can I make a suggestion? I don't think my microphone is working.
It is.
It is.
It was.
It is.
Is it working?
Yes.
My ears aren't working.
And we know that.
This is scary. Is it working?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the next item, I believe, is the approval of the budget.
Yes, sir.
And this matter, from talking to Hiram, can be done at a later date. Hiram, would you say the 18th? Just speak louder so I can hear.
You asked me what the latest date was, and I
Or
said
the earliest, latest.
it has to be adopted no later than the 29th of this month.
Right. Here's my concern. From the consensus point of view, this budget is going to be tonight, unless Ms. Harris has changed her mind, I haven't, 2-2. And the mayor is put in a position to approve it. But in fairness to the mayor, he wasn't here during the budget process. He wasn't here during any of the discussions. So he's going to sit here and approve something that he had no participation in. None. He's looking at a whole bunch of data, but he doesn't understand all of it. So I don't think it's fair to put him in that position to make a decision. So what I would like to do is wait for the next council meeting. Help me out, Hiram. When Mark Benton is present, who was involved in the budget process. So I guess I have to file a motion to defer this until the next council meeting. Hiram, help me out.
If that's what your motion is,
Well, I have to file a motion.
you'd be motioning to table the item until June 18th.
To the 18th.
Yes, sir. If that's,
Well, I'm going to try it.
Well, let me just say one thing, okay? One thing. I've been to these council meetings, every council meeting since November. I've seen us go through line by line this budget. Line by line, we went through this budget. Now, I was on the other side watching, but I know that every line on this budget has been gone through, line by line. I do not want to put this thing off to the 18th of June when we know that we're mandated by the 29th of June to have a passed budget. You're only leaving us 11 days. A lot can happen in 11 days that is unforeseen. We are here now. Everybody on the council has agreed to this line-by-line budget. Everyone on the council has seen it and agreed to it. I think we just need to move on. Vote on it.
Mr. Mayor, and Councilman Soretta, the outcome's going to be the same.
Will you pick my Powerball numbers for me?
If we're trying to delay something, it's just, it's fruitless and it's ridiculous to try to delay it. It's not, we're not getting anywhere.
before any motions are made, can I make a suggestion and have Ms. Eatman go through what she's prepared for y'all to even be reviewing for tonight?
Go ahead, Tara.
We're not putting this off. We're handling it tonight.
It's going tonight.
So the budget is, we had a bunch of sessions all together, starting in February. The one thing that I do want to mention, because I know that there was some question about the revenue neutral. The revenue neutral tax rate is 0.1415 cents per $100 valuation. It is in the budget message, and it's also in the budget ordinance that I'm proposing, and we did talk about it in the budget sessions, but I just wanted to make sure that that was stated clearly. Do you want me to go through the budget message, or?
I'd just go over your cover sheet, just, tax
Just
rate,
okay.
the proposed tax rate, the proposed budget.
Okay. So, the council had reached a consensus for the proposed budget that's totaling $6,872,060. The consensus was to bring the tax rate up to 16 cents per $100 valuation. So what we're asking for tonight is to establish the tax rate and approve the budget and approve the fee schedule. Is there any questions on anything that we've done with the budget this far?
Just one in case I didn't hear it, Tara. What is a penny worth now? Is it 164,000?
It's approximately that.
Is it something?
I have it in my binder, but it's approximately 160,000.
159.
159? Is that what you said?
That's, I believe that's right.
I have a question, maybe this has been answered before, but are our county taxes remaining revenue neutral? Have they decided yet?
I don't think that the county has passed their budget yet. I know that they have a proposed budget, and I believe was on the June 18th for the county, but
I think it is.
we had talked about it earlier.
I can't remember off the top of my head. It's later in the month, they'll be passing their budget.
Do you have
But
any
I
idea?
don't have an idea what how they're doing their tax rate yet.
The draft
They
budget.
will tell you, they do have to tell you what their revenue neutral rate is. That's on county and municipal level. We have to tell you what that is. Is there any other questions? There's the budget message. I try to break everything down for you in that, like the explanations, and there is some, I believe it's online as well. Did we put that online? Yeah. There's some charts and graphs and pie charts and things like that that kind of show how the process works and what it is. I don't think we really have any changes to the fee schedule.
No, and just to point out that the budget being presented for y'all tonight is not drawing from the fund balance.
Right.
Everything's being handled. We're at a good place with our fund balance, and we don't really anticipate needing to dip into it. However, that did spark the need to do the proposed tax increase to be able to still manage the services and the programs that y'all want. Like last year, I know we lowered the taxes, but we also dipped heavily into the fund balance to make it happen. It's not prudent, so we proposed other things during the whole budget process. I'm just reiterating that for everybody's knowledge.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
For you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is the salary and benefit package survey still in the budget?
I think we took that out.
No, the last time we had discussed that, I believe that department heads needed to look at salaries of like
Yeah, like
other
organizations.
towns. I think that was the last consensus that we had, and
Yeah,
we didn't really go anywhere with that after that.
there really isn't a lot of frills in this budget for things like that. All that pretty much got taken out early on in the process. We try to do some of the stuff in-house the best we can.
The league offers some comparisons for towns of the same size, like population-wise.
And we utilize that too, but it's not apples and apples. Sometimes one of their jobs in one community may be split up into 3 jobs in another, or maybe vice versa. So that's taken with a bit of grain of salt.
I understand.
Is there any other questions?
I don't. Do you? You have any other questions, Rich?
I'd like to make a motion.
John?
I move that we adopt the budget as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
No, I would like just a second of discussion.
Go ahead.
I am very disappointed in this budget. And I know the people that have been watching us go through this are really disappointed as well. And I have real concern that we're raising taxes and we're also raising the fire fee, and we don't know what the county's going to do. We all had a significant jump last year. There are some things in the budget that I don't think should be there, especially when we're having to raise taxes. We're given a generous, compared to another beach town, a generous merit increase to our employees, and we are also giving a Christmas bonus that I believe is not proper when we have to raise taxes on our citizens. Not all of our citizens are as wealthy possibly as the people sitting in this room. I also am disappointed that one thing that we sorely, sorely, sorely need and could possibly help us reduce cost is a parking study. And that has been cut out of the budget. I think there are things that we could do, that we could have a cost reduction program. Nobody came before us talking about, oh, we can do this and reduce these costs. Nobody has mentioned one word about reducing cost. So I am going to vote no on this budget.
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead, Charlie.
last year was my first budget process, and I did not think we should lower taxes a penny to 15 cents, mainly because we were going into the fund balance to do so. And even though I didn't like that, it was a pretty good budget, and I voted yes for it. And I don't think anybody should vote no for a budget because taxes went up a penny. As far as the taxes go, I suggested a tax rate of 19 cents. And that is realistic to take us into the future and to take care of our future needs and things we've kicked down the road forever. Stormwater was never funded. There were some things I wanted to see in the budget, and they got knocked out. Well, that's fine. There'll be another year. A lot of you are on a fixed income. Well, I am too. And when I ran for election and asked people what they thought about the benefits you get from this town, the vast majority said they would be glad to pay higher taxes as long as the services remain the same. I knew 19 cents wasn't realistic, and that's why I wanted to take it back up to 16 cents. And I can't remember the figures on a $300,000 house. That's
Per penny, it's $30.
$30. When you look at your budget bill and you look at the total, most of that is the county. And you'll ask yourselves what we get from the county. We get a lot from the county that's not apparent. The one thing we get from the county is our trash pickup, and changing the date on the beach from Wednesday to Thursday is not acceptable. It's been a problem every week. That's something we'll discuss in the future. But this is a good budget, and I will vote yes for it.
Rich, do you have anything to say?
John?
Go ahead.
No, go on.
No, you go ahead.
No, go on. Age before beauty. All right, I'll go. I
Rich,
love history.
President Truman once said, the more money you give government, they'll find a way to spend it. That's this budget. That's this budget. The past couple of years, we've increased the fire rate 75%. 75%. Do you know what that means? Plus a penny tax rate increase this year. Do you know what that means? You've been taxed 59% more than 3 years ago. That's what it means. Everything I said about this budget has been in the Beacon. And the Beacon did a great job with the details. Couple of budget session I wasn't here. Beacon did every detail about the request. They wanted a new public works building, dog park, all these wonderful things. For who? Taxpayers? What this town needs, and it needs to invest in, is beach parking for our people, which has been ignored by this council. You know why? I don't. But when you look at all the building going around here, there's going to be developments in South Carolina, there's developments on Georgetown Road, big apartment complexes here, and where the heck do you think those people are going to go to the beach? Sunset Beach. They're going to bring their cabanas. And here's another thing. 3 years ago, beach patrol was $42,000. It used to be just a little nice summer job. Make sure nobody brings a bottle of beer. No one gets into an argument. Now it costs us $111,000 a year. You know how we solve it? We're going to hire another full-time fire person. Yeah, that's how government solves problems. We're going to hire another full-time summer person. Full-time. For the summer and insurance risk. Insurance risk. For a population of 4,000 for 10 months. And we're also going to hire another policeman for animal control. Now, I don't begrudge the staff. Don't get me wrong. When you tell your staff to spend, they'll spend. If you tell your staff, cut cost, I don't know how you're going to do it. If you need help, we'll do it. Or I'll do it. But cut cost 7%. They'll do it. In fact, Tara and Hiram ditched the dog park and ditched the public works facility. Thank God they did it. Because if I wanted to, they would have voted no. Did you know we'll have 18 full-time firemen? 18! More than any other town in this region. Think about it. I'm talking about Holden Beach, Calabash, Shalope, and they have more activity. More calls. You know what I hear from people a lot? What the heck do we need a second fire station for? It sits up there, and it sits there, and it does nothing. Oh, but we have to respond within so many minutes. We don't have fires anymore in this town. Very seldom do we have a fire. You know what we have? Medical emergencies. And right next door to the second fire station is an EMS. So I don't support this budget. I don't blame the staff. When you have a council that says our taxes should be 17, 18, 19 cents so that people can get the best service they need, Listen, I've been here 13 years. I haven't seen one damn thing that benefited me. I enjoy the park. I don't call the police. I haven't had any fires.
Your neighbor
But
did.
they're there. I know they're there. Every time I turn a corner, there's a police car. I'll be damned if I go through a stop sign. I'll get probably arrested. But think about it. What's improved? You already have these services. The thing is, they cost more. And there's more people doing them. It's the lack of accountability. I'm not a government person. Never worked for government. I worked in business. And this budget is a bad budget. Because it has no vision. And what will happen someday, it's going to be too late. So I am not going to approve this budget. In fact, I didn't approve the budget last year. In fact, ever since I've been a public official, I haven't supported any budget. I predicted the 52% tax increase 4 years ago because the council kept on spending. And they're still doing it. And I feel like I'm wasting my darn time.
All right.
Until this town takes into effect the accountability and recognizes and just stop using public relations works like this is the greatest town in the world. It is a great town. I moved here. I bought a house here. I have a business here. It is a great town. Great people. The most generous people I've ever met. That doesn't mean that we should take advantage of them. And that's what I feel like we're doing. Oh, it's only another $30 a year, Rich. $30 a year, every year. The reason why our tax rate is now 16 cents, and people say, oh, this is the lowest tax rate. Oh, look at the records. We're the lowest tax rate. Look at us. We're great. We're the lowest tax rate because we have the highest assessments. See, I call this budget trickery. I call this government trickery. That's what they do. Okay. I'm voting no.
My turn?
Yes, sir.
I can say with a high degree of confidence that I disagree with about 98% of everything Councilman Serrato just went through. I question his, I question his facts. I question the way he makes allegations about how things are being done. I think this is, one, a well-done budget. The staff was diligent, and they cut many areas to the quick. It was not frivolous. They cover key services that citizens expect and demand: our police protection, our fire services, our public works. It continues what we started last year, a 10-year program to address stormwater, which is a major issue here. It provides an opportunity for merit increases and gives our staff a $500 Christmas bonus. Well deserved. In terms of the fire cost, in fiscal year 16, it was $1.7 million, $1,780,000 was what we paid for fire, between fire fees and taxes. In this year's budget, it's $1,918,000, an increase over the 3 to 4 year period of $128,000, or put a different way, that's a 7% increase in operating cost over the course of that period of time. We haven't had much inflation, but that is pretty consistent, in which case we have greatly improved the quality, the equipment, the training of our fire department. The same applies to our police department. This inflationary budget that we have is $224,000 less than last year's budget. In the course of these budget discussions that we had, Mr. Serrato did not make one specific suggestion as to what could be cut or reduced or eliminated. And that went through there. So, having said that it's a great budget, we still continue a long-term practice that this town has had in pushing off needed investments and expenditures. I, for one, am not comfortable with the salary scale that it is adequate for our staff to provide an adequate standard of living, particularly at the lower end, where it runs out about $18 per hour or $35,000 a year. That's pretty low in this modern day and age, particularly when you're looking at the younger people at that scale who are trying to raise a family. I'm disappointed that for all the talk about stormwater issues, that we still have not provided staff to man the stormwater department. The 2 people we're going to put on there got cut in our discussions. We continue to rely on the Department of Public Works to do the stormwater work, as well as to do all the DPW work that we want to do. It does not include startup funds or capital improvement funds going into land acquisition that we're going to need in the future, whether it's for the DPW land for stormwater facilities to support the equipment, or a long-term capital equipment replacement plan. These are things that we need to do over a period of time. So I'm glad that we have approved a 1% or 1 cent per 100 tax hike, but the reality is that it should have been at least 2%. Charlie pointed out that it should have been 4%. In conclusion, it is a good, balanced budget and enables the town to continue to move forward. And I obviously will support this budget.
Mr. Mayor, may I?
Go ahead.
Please.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Go ahead.
Silbert always likes to go last after I do my public record presentation. That is public record. He does it for a strategic purpose, but I do wish to respond. First of all, we have hired an outsourced leaf and limb last year. It cost about $115,000 a year. The time that was taken, that was done by our employees, was to relieve them of this burden so that they could focus on stormwater. Because the most important issue in this town, believe it or not,
That was wrong.
is stormwater. Please don't do that while I'm speaking. I find it disruptive, and there's a
Good.
reason why you do it. I didn't go to counterintelligence school, but I know all about the people who did. Now,
Mr. Mayor, point of order.
Okay,
This
thank you.
is
Thank you. Please don't
totally
interrupt.
inappropriate.
Yes, inappropriate.
Let's
Please
wrap
don't
up.
interrupt me. Now, we worked out with Hiram. Hiram, please pay attention. We worked out with you minimum adjusted wage, the bottom of the rung.
I don't know what you're referring to. I mean,
A starting wage. We have a minimum starting wage, do we not?
yes, sir, we updated that last year.
Yes.
Not
Thank you
this
ver-
budget year.
Thank you very much. The stormwater issue is critical. There's only $200,000 allocated to stormwater. And I looked at the report, what needs to be done, it's gonna cost us more than $200,000. The other issue is that my colleagues worry about salaries and benefits. I feel like I'm bargaining with one of the unions that I had a bargain with. They always worry about salaries and benefits. Well, the state provides salary surveys. And they send it, it's called the National League of Municipalities. They have a salary survey. And when I get them, I send them to Lisa, or provide them to Lisa, and then she sends the whole council. Our salaries are very competitive. I would say more than competitive. Our employees are treated fairly. This is not a sweatshop. They do a good job. They're loyal, they're dedicated, and many stay for a long time, but many leave too. They get married, they change careers, they go back to school or whatever. They get free medical. disability, pensions. We even contribute to their 401k up to $5,000 or so. How many employers do that in this region?
Correction, one small correction, please.
What?
Our employees do pay for their insurance. They pay a small
very
amount
small
compared to what they would have to buy it on the free market.
I pay $900 a month, and I have Medicare and Blue Cross and Blue Shield. They don't pay $900 a month. The point that I'm trying to make, our wages are competitive, and our benefits are very competitive. The best jobs in this area for protection and security are government jobs. Period. Our employees make more than teachers, some of them. And to me, that's the most critical damn job in our society. So I'm not running for president. But the point that I'm trying to make, we're always trying to patronize our employees. It's like we're looking to buy loyalty. We've given them a $500 bonus this year. Last year, the council approved the bonus because, oh, they had a hurricane and they did a great job and they approved a $300 bonus. Now we're approving a $500 bonus and we haven't even had a storm. We put in a wage compensation package, performance-based, for performance purposes. What does the town council do? We give them that plus a $500 bonus. Let me tell you something. No wonder this country's bankrupt. And this is where it starts. Local government. I said enough. I'm not going to change anybody's mind. This is an irresponsible budget, not cause of the staff. Thank you, and I'm done.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Call for a vote? Or do you want to say something?
I did.
Uh-huh.
You know, the services that we are all provided comes from our town, Public Works, Fire, Police. And you can say, well, there hadn't been a fire at my house. I haven't needed to call an ambulance. Well, I have a company to take care of my yard, so I don't need Brush Bandit to pick up my stuff. What do you want to give up? You want to cut 1.6 million from the budget? Let's do like Carolina Shores does. Contract with the sheriff for one officer. And that's not even 24 hours a day. We can save 1.6 million. Would you feel safe without our police department? Some of these policemen and firemen, the starting level, make $10 and $12 an hour. That's terrible. Now, okay, yeah, let's vote on this.
Okay. I think it's a fair budget. I don't have any qualms with it. The only thing I would say is we have to do something about the beach parking. I wouldn't mind putting parking meters in over there just to get a little bit of income for that place. But that's for another time.
That's on a future agenda, Mr. Mayor.
I'd like to call the question, please.
We already did.
We already did. We're ready to vote.
Are we ready to vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All in favor of the budget, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. Chief?
May I make one?
Go ahead.
I would recommend everybody go through and read the write-up that Tara did that explains the stuff that's in our budget. If you don't have it in the packet, it's online. Thank you.
I'll try to be brief.
Hi, Chief.
This before you is to adopt an ordinance for every street in Sunset Beach. We wanted to have a schedule that showed every street, so if it was ever questioned, we could go back to this and verify, in fact, that that is the speed limit for that street, and it has been adopted and approved by council. This was brought up because of the recent takeover of streets in Sea Trail.
Speak a little louder for me,
For sure.
please.
With the streets that we took over in the Sea Trail subdivision, the speed limits were not adopted at that same time. So we went ahead and did every street, which is on the attachment that you have before you, which we can blanket in one ordinance, so there will be no question as to whether or not the town has formally adopted the speed limits for those streets. That's what you have before you.
This is every street in town.
Yes,
Chief,
ma'am.
I have a couple of
This is
I
just,
have a couple of questions. I'm not gonna get into if the speed limit should be 20 or 25. I leave that up to you. But I do have a logic problem. And I do have an inherent conflict of interest. The front of my house is on Twisted Oak Lane. The back of my house is on North Shoreline, or East Shoreline East, or North Shoreline East, whatever. The cars go down there 35 miles an hour, that's the speed limit. The street is narrow. People use it as a bypass for 179, even though there's a sign there. It's a free country. People walk on both sides of the street. And my perception is, I mean, a lot of people walk, a lot of elderly people, because this town has a average population, well, the average age in this town is 67. So we're a bunch of old fogies. And I see cars and trucks going down 35 miles an hour. Sometimes even faster. They zip through because the road is flat. Why is that 35 miles an hour? Why can't it be reduced? It's such a narrow road, people use to walk, there's no sidewalks, and it's 35 miles an hour, and it's used as a bypass. Now, I'm not a saint, but I don't usually go more than 25 or 30 down there, because I know it's heavily congested at times. So why is it left at 35? That's my first question. The second question is Park Drive. That's 35. Park Drive is only a half a mile long. There's 8 signs that say 35 miles an hour. That road should not be 35. When I look at these other roads that are 20 and 25 miles an hour, I'm trying to figure out, why is Park Road 35 miles an hour? I can't figure it out. Why do we have 8 signs, 35, 35, 35, 35? I can't figure it out. So I don't know if it should be reduced. To me, it should be reduced. Logic tells me that. I don't know what the law does. The other thing, I go around the island. You know, we talk about beautification and how great this town is. I see more signs than people. No parking, no parking, no parking, no parking, no parking, no parking, no parking. One after another. I see all these we talk about beautification. Maybe we need someone to go around and say, do we need this sign? How many no parking signs do we need within 30 feet, 40 feet? How many no parking signs? 5, 6? Go around the town, you'll see them. And I scratch my head. So, I would like to modify this proposal if I could, and make Park Road 25 and East Shoreline 30. Does that make sense?
No.
I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to the chief.
if I may, your first question was with regard to Shoreline Drive East. And I can answer the question for number 2 with Park Road, probably with the same answer I'm going to provide. As you know, those signs were in place, those speed limits were set well before I came to Sunset Beach. If I'm
Let him finish. My God.
I'm not blaming you.
The normal course of business for the police department would be to assess the safety and risk factor of any roadway were it to be determined either through continual complaints or through the monitoring of traffic that the speed was set in improperly, perhaps, at a speed that would be dangerous for the width of the road, the vehicular traffic, the pedestrian traffic, the density, the number of houses, the spaces in between the houses. Those 2 streets are not something that I am repeatedly seeing where traffic citations are being issued. They are not 2 streets where I see that the citizens are calling to complain about people speeding on a regular basis on Park Road and Shoreline East. So I would not say that your concern has no merit. I would not say that we would not look at that and make a fair assessment as to whether or not those streets need to be reduced. But to automatically tonight say, yes, they need to be reduced to 25, I don't think that's something that I would agree to tonight without giving some fair attention to both of those streets. And like I said, there's been nothing that's been brought to my attention before tonight that would lead me to say I really need to focus on Shoreline East and Park Road. As far as question number 3 with signs on the island, again, those were there before I got here. And every time that somebody comes into the lobby of this building to talk to me because they received a parking citation, the first thing they say to me is, I didn't see a sign. Where are the signs? So we put a sign up, and then someone else will come in and say, why do we have all these signs? People know they can't block a sidewalk. They know they can't park in a bike lane. So if we remove the signs, those same people are going to come back and say, we need more signs because people are parking everywhere. So I'm answering your question, Mr. Serrato.
I understand the logic. And I'm not blaming you. And I'm not blaming anybody. I don't know, maybe you should survey the people on Shoreline. A lot of people don't complain. So maybe they should. A lot of people don't complain. Maybe you should. There's not that many people on Park Drive. Why don't you ask them? Why don't you ask the people on Shoreline Drive East?
As I mentioned when I answered your questions for number 1 and number 2, I said that that was something that we could do, that I could give it attention. And again, you just mentioned how there's not that many people on Park Road. That's the reason that speed limit's set at 35 miles an hour, because it's not as dense as some of the other neighborhoods. But again, it's something that attention can be given to. It's something that I will definitely look into. But as far as changing that tonight, I don't feel that that's proper.
It's a short road. There's no reason to go down there 35 miles per hour. It's heavily used because people use it as an access to go to Food Lion and the other stores. Okay? And
Yes, sir.
there's homes on both sides. There's no sidewalks, and it's narrow. It's the same as Shoreline Drive East. I just noticed that those are the only 2 roads that are 35 miles an hour. Those are the only 2 roads. That's all I'm saying.
I understand.
Okay.
Just look into it. I'm not gonna.
Yes, sir.
Like to call for a vote? Do we have a motion?
I need a motion.
I move that we adopt the ordinance to amend 71.07 establishing town street speed limits.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, next up is appointment of mayor, myself, to the Cape Fear COG representative.
I move that we appoint you representative to the COG.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Wait a minute, I want to talk about that.
Okay, disposition of directives. Number one is a community meeting for 6/15/19.
Didn't we approve that?
Yeah.
That's just when it is.
Yeah, it's just, that's set for here at 10 o'clock on the 15th in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay.
Number two is the Gauss Cemetery at Seaside. We're waiting on the attorney. Oyster Bay, the same thing.
Yes.
Alligator Management, waiting on
The
same.
state.
Camel Land Use Plan discussion.
I'm
Jan?
not ready.
Okay. Parking Problem Solutions.
I'm not ready with that either.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever. I mean,
Beach Rules, Committee Objectives.
Mr. Mayor, I added 2 more agenda reports that I sent to Ms. Lisa. I don't think they're reflected on there. That was,
Let me get this.
Business Guild and
Did I hear an answer?
On the beach
No.
rules,
Beach Rules.
I would like to get a little further into this summer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Number 8 is the council action to officially remove Jenks Creek from the shoreline management program. Let that go. Legal review for dredging, erosion, and flooding. Rich? Legal review, re-examine dredging assessment fee allocation. Rich? Island issues, special meeting. Rich? ERC appointment consideration.
well, that
That'll-
may be.
Yeah, once we get y'all's calendar, we'll put that on July 1 for y'all to set a date in July then. Get
Okay.
y'all's calendar so that we can figure out interviews. Or
What
unless,
did-
unless you want to try to do the interviews this month and then we can set it for July 1 for you to appoint. Not a good month? Okay. Give us y'all's calendars for July so that on that night, we can set the meeting date for y'all to do interviews.
Okay.
What did we do with all these legal reviews? 9, 10, and 11.
We just left them on there. No action.
Has a legal review been called for? Has that been put to Grady?
They're still in your, y'all haven't sent it to Grady. This is on the disposition of directives for y'all to make a decision to move forward or not. It's not been taken to an agenda item, which means you haven't sent it to Grady.
Okay.
Hiram, can we entertain a motion to adjourn?
We got public comments.
Oh, sorry.
Public comments. Anyone wishing to speak? Yes, sir.
Sir, if you could speak up, please.
I understand. I got you. Good evening. I'm Henry Payne. I own a property at 7821 Unit 3 High Market Street. I'm also here representing as the president of the HOA for Village Park. On April 28, 2019, the Sunset Beach Technical Review Committee met on the Artesia Village apartment project. The staff recommended that the town's planning board move to approve this project. The planning board is scheduled to consider this project Thursday, June 6 at 9 o'clock in the morning, as this was presented earlier this evening. This is a major project and will add 72 apartments on 4.96 acres adjacent to the Village Park condominium complex, with a potential growth in the future. The proposed units consist of 12 one-bedroom units, 36 two-bedroom units, and 24 three-bedroom units. I respectfully bring to you, the council, the concern of residents of Village Park have expressed as the lack of information from the town regarding this project thus far. Rumors have been circulating about this project for over a year, and when we approach the town officials, we are told, I'm not aware of anything going on back there. There must have been some knowledge of this project much earlier than April 2019 for it to progress this quickly through the various committees. There is strong desire on behalf of the Village Park residents to be involved in a public hearing on this proposed project. This forum would allow them, the residents, to become educated and informed about the scope and potential impacts of the project and how it may affect their community. Additionally, the requested forum would allow the residents of all Sunset Beach to ask questions and provide input to you, their elected officials, regarding their concerns before this project is sanctioned by the town of Sunset Beach. Thank you for allowing me to address this issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, sir.
Fred Thorne, 1790-4 Queen Anne Street. I, as the mayor had mentioned earlier, my office is on Queen Anne Street. I've had a lot of telephone calls, a lot of emails asking me what is going on High Market Street. I believe this goes back probably about a year and a half when I started looking into a few things. And I guess some of the concerns are already brought up, but this 72 units can be expanded. It's proposed for 72, but I believe it goes up to another 36 units. And with the number of residents that are allowed to reside in those units, you can be increasing the population by the town of Sunset Beach by over 10% just in this one apartment complex. Also, I looked at the information that was put out by the planning board. It was very hard to read the maps and stuff. And there is a significant amount of that 4.96 acres, of which I believe 50% is buildable, that is designated as wetlands. And those wetlands are to be filled according to what I see in the planning documents. There is no notation that I noticed on those planning documents that indicated the percentage of wetlands. There was one map there that was so fuzzy that was on the website, it was unlegible. Okay, so I hear, about police protection, fire protection, and everything else. I just question, is the budget going to be sufficient enough to increase the population of Sunset Beach by approximately 10%? So again, I think town council needs to look into this. I know the mayor had mentioned about getting emails and telephone calls and stuff, and I question just how long has this project been known by the town and kept silent. It's sort of, I've lived in this area for 20 years now, follow the town kind of closely, although I have my office here, I don't physically live in town. But, you just look back and you look at the zoning changes of BB1, the 4 duplexes out on Sunset Boulevard. You look at Dollar General, it seems that just a lot of stuff is, you know, being, I guess the word to use is, I have a feeling that the town is not being transparent with the residents of this town. Thank you.
Real quick, the maps are on display at the town hall. The packet, we're not going to send you poster size. I will be here tomorrow. And come to the planning department, take a look. Second of all, because this is a hot issue, no, we didn't know this was coming until they applied. And even if we had, it's not a public document and it's not official. But I'm not saying we did, because I had no idea until the day they applied that they were coming in here to do apartments there.
What day did they apply?
Sometime in April or late March this year.
I have a letter from you dated 2018 that approves the project and says it's okay.
No, what happened in 2018 is I said this looks fine for a proposed project. Once you make application, we'll go through the process. That was also the 4th person who had actually shown interest in that property. So I had no belief to know that anybody was going to move forward with anything. However, to also finish this, apartments are permitted by right in that zone. Under North Carolina law, we have no choice but to allow it if they meet our conditions. Under the town rules, it goes to the planning board for that decision.
Let me ask a question on that.
I don't think we're supposed to have discussions back and
I'm
forth.
just trying to clarify that this information is available at the town hall for them to come review.
Could I please ask a question? I would like to ask a question. Are these meeting our density requirements? We have density requirements
They could
in
actually be
place.
higher.
Why?
No, they could go for more because the acreage of the property, they're actually lower density. They're less units than they could put in based on their design.
They're under our density
Yeah,
requirements.
they meet our requirements
Okay.
for that.
All right, on the wetlands,
They have to get their.
do they have to mitigate those?
They have to mitigate them with the state and the Corps. That we're waiting for, as far as I know. I'm not involved in this process. Our planning director, Todd Rademacher, he was up here earlier. But.
We'll make sure that they are mitigated.
Oh, of course.
I know that goes through the Army Corps of Engineers.
Yeah, and we can't issue the permit until it
But
is.
we,
Until the Corps issues.
we can give our concerns, right?
Mhm.
And I hope we do.
It's already been touched on.
Okay, thank you.
Let me just bring in one more thing.
I think we're out of order here.
I apologize for that.
I'm sorry.
We're not supposed to have this back and forth discussion.
Okay, no back and forth. One other thing. Oh, it was late summer, fall time. I noticed a lot of bulldozing going on back there, okay? Soil samples being taken. So somebody was doing a lot of work back there quite a while ago. And I and some other folks actually walked back there. And there were areas that were so wet that we couldn't even walk. So, you know, when I saw on that planning map about filling wetlands, I'm saying, who's going to allow that? And how far, I guess my other question is, how far along is this in the planning process? Is this a shovel-ready project right now? Or, I mean, we got a brand-new planning director in town, and
You asking a question makes this back and forth. And Mr. Mayor, there's a 3-minute time limit.
Okay.
And at the same time, I invite anybody to come to town hall to discuss this with staff as with any other project. That's what we're here for.
I'm
Do you have a comment, sir?
Yes, sir. I'm Ronnie Starnes. I have a partial part-time home over on Dock Street.
Your address, sir?
7610-3 High Market Street. Dock Street Townhomes. I've lived there since, I'm an original owner since 2007. And I'm very disappointed, as are many of my 55 and 54 neighbors, that this project seems to have come in under the radar for about the last year and a half. And so I think the one thing that would go a long way to alleviate my issues and my worries is I'm thinking that this has maybe been, since it's not been publicized, I haven't seen it in the Beacon or anywhere else, is that possibly could you have your town attorney go through these documents and these negotiations and make sure they're on the up and up, and that would go to a certain degree to reassure us. But in the same time, we have a planning board meeting set for Thursday at 9 o'clock, and which it looks like the only design for that meeting is it sounds like everything has already been set in stone and approved, and the only purpose for that meeting is to have the plan design approved and the permitting. So it sounds like it's a done deal already, and it's just come out of the blue and hit us out of the dark, and that's very disturbing. So I think you could go a long way for the residents of Sunset Beach and for yourselves, is to have your town attorney go through some of these documents and these negotiations, because I know there are easements issues over at Village Park. I know there are private road issues, and I think there's probably some mistakes that the developer made when they submitted their application to the NCHFA. So I think all of that needs to be reviewed. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, sir. One more.
Barry Black, 7825-11 High Market Street. I have the same concerns as the other gentlemen that live in Village Park. I want the council to know that High Market Street is not a public street. It's a private street. We own that street. And I have a real concern. We've already had heavy equipment go through there. We have no idea if that road can handle construction through that road. We would be responsible at some point, but that is a public road. I mean, a private road owned by us. So I don't know where you guys stand with that, if you even know that. And also, will this go before the public on a public hearing?
It's permitted by right use by the zoning ordinance.
So it will not go before the public?
By state law, it cannot require a public hearing.
Well, I think as us owning that street, we can dictate what equipment goes through there.
They'll have a construction entrance off of Angel's Trace.
But if we say no, it's no. We own the street.
That's between you, them, and the Architectural Review Committee and the Masters Association over there. If y'all deny them access, that's on y'all. But I don't think based on your terms and everything, it's my understanding those roads are open for development on both sides.
They're not. It's closed on one end. How are we going to handle 72 apartments, 2 to 3 more cars?
Then come talk to us tomorrow.
No, I'll be here tomorrow and I'll be here Thursday.
That's what I'm saying.
Can I just readdress one other issue that Barry just brought up? That road.
There's only one opportunity to speak at public comments. We're just throwing the rules down the road. And it's important to me too, but let's follow the rules.
I'd just like to say one more thing and I'll get off the podium.
Quick.
According to the application that the Aztec apartment complex put in, they indicated that road was a public road and is not. It is a private road owned by the Village Park residents, been maintained by Village Park residents, and still is being maintained. And their plan shows the access into their apartment complex off of our private road into their private apartment complex.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, if I could, I'm having a meeting tomorrow with Todd at 9 o'clock. Because I received an email, a couple of emails this weekend with this concern. And I have to admit, maybe I have been negligent in the sense that I don't go to planning board meetings because I got
pretty hefty schedule that I have to do. But I wasn't aware of this major project. It couldn't be me. It couldn't be me. It could be my own negligence.
Okay.
We got it.
It could be me. It could be my own negligence. You can't hear me? That's what I'm afraid.
We can hear you. Go ahead. It's not working. Here, go ahead.
I'm sorry, folks, but
I have to tell you, it sucks being deaf. It could be me, but I think Mr. Thorne is right. I didn't know about it. It could be my own negligence. I don't go to planning board meetings. And then all of a sudden, I get a couple of emails about low-income housing, big project, High Market Street. And I say, am I living in the same town? Are they talking about Carolina Shores? Really? I've seen nothing. Mr. Thorne is right. It's like the Dollar General. I didn't know there was going to be a Dollar General. We can't do anything about it, but I didn't know there was going to be a Dollar General. We had this problem a number of years ago with the Wave store. Council didn't know there was going to be a Wave store there, but when the people found out, boy, they picketed it. They're angry. And I see that we're repeating the same mistakes. So I think we got to put our heads together.
thank you, Fred.
Okay. Meeting is adjourned.